He kicked the chair out from under himself, and it hit the marble like a gunshot. 97 minutes. 97 minutes Adrian Carter sat at a table for two, while a room full of strangers watched a man get stood up in real time. Then he stood, and the whole restaurant froze. He didn't walk out. He walked to her, bent down over a woman he had never met, a woman whose name could move markets, and whispered 11 words into her ear. She didn't call security. She said one word back: "Sit." And neither of them knew that word would cost her $51 billion or save both their lives. Comment your city so I can see how far this story travels tonight. Subscribe, let's go. The maitre d' started moving before the chair had finished rolling. Sir, is there a problem? Adrian didn't answer him. He was already walking, and he was walking with the particular steadiness of a man who had made a decision he could not take back, and had decided not to think about it too hard, because thinking about it would stop him. 11 steps. He counted them without meaning to. He'd been counting things all night, the minutes, the number of times the woman at table 4 had glanced over at him and looked away. The 3 times the busboy had refilled a water glass belonging to a person who did not exist. 11 steps across a floor that cost more than his truck. She was sitting near the window. Black dress. Dark hair pinned up in a way that had probably taken somebody an hour. An empty chair across from her pushed in tight, untouched. 2 menus on the table, one of them still closed. A glass of red wine that had been poured a long time ago and had not moved since. She had been there almost as long as he had. He'd noticed her at the 40-minute mark. He'd looked away at the 41st because he was raised better than to stare at a woman eating alone. But then the hour came, and the hour and a half came, and somewhere in there, he'd stopped being a man at a restaurant and turned into something else, an exhibit. And he'd realized she had turned into one too. 2 exhibits, same museum. He stopped at the edge of her table. She looked up. She didn't flinch. That was the first thing he'd remember about her. Later, that she didn't flinch, she just rose to meet it, chin up, eyes flat, and ready. The look of a person who had been approached by a lot of men in a lot of rooms and had never once enjoyed it. Adrian leaned down, not close, just enough. And he said it quietly, so only she could hear. Your blind date didn't show up either. Nobody in the restaurant heard the words. They only saw a big man in an old coat bending over a woman alone, and 11 different phones came halfway out of 11 different pockets. She stared at him. 3 full seconds. Then something happened in her face. It wasn't a smile. It was worse than a smile. It was the thing that happens right before a person cries and refuses to that small collapse and immediate rebuild, gone so fast that if he'd blinked, he'd have missed it. 97 minutes, she said. Adrian went very still. What? That's how long I've been sitting here. Her voice was low and dry and steady. You've been checking your watch since 8:15. So has the couple behind you. So has the waiter. And I've been sitting here doing math on how long I have to stay before leaving. Looks like a choice instead of a result. 97, Adrian said. 97 what? That's how long I've been here too. And there it was again, that flicker, that hairline crack in something that had been built to never crack. Well, she said, then we're the same math problem. 97 minutes earlier, Adrian Carter had been sitting in a 14-year-old pickup in the parking garage on Boylston, both hands on the wheel engine, off arguing with a woman on speakerphone. Denise, I'm turning around. You are not turning around. I've got a 7-year-old at home who thinks I'm at a work thing. She thinks you're at a work thing because you lied to her, Adrian, which is between you and your conscience. Are you in the garage? I'm in the garage. Then you're not turning around. Denise was his late wife's sister, which meant she was the one person on earth who had the standing to do this to him, and she knew it, and she used it without shame roughly 4 times a year. This is a bad idea, Adrian said. You've said that 6 times. It's been a bad idea 6 times. Her name is Erin. She's 41. She's a pediatric nurse, She has a dog, she has a mortgage, she has a dead husband, which before you say anything is exactly the point because she will not look at you like you're a tragedy. She'll look at you like you're a Tuesday. Denise exhaled. Adrian, honey, it's been 4 years. 4 years and 7 months. You say that like it's an argument. He watched a woman in heels cross in front of the truck, laughing at something on her phone, and it occurred to him that he hadn't laughed at anything on his phone in a very long time. What if it goes fine? He said. Then it goes fine. No, listen. He rubbed his thumb along a crack in the steering wheel. What if it goes fine, and then it goes fine again, and then it goes fine for 6 months? And then Maya starts drawing that woman in the family picture. Third figure, standing on the left, holding her hand. Because that's what she does, Denise. She puts people in the picture. She doesn't ask, she just puts them in. And then it stops going fine. Silence on the line. You want me to say something reassuring, Denise said finally. No. Good. Because I'm not going to. That could happen. That could absolutely happen, and it would be terrible, and you'd both survive it because that kid has survived worse, and so have you. A pause. Check your coat pocket. What? Your inside coat pocket. Left, check it. He checked it. It was a piece of paper folded 4 times, folded the way a 7-year-old folds things, which is to say wrong with one corner sticking out. His name was on the outside in purple marker. Dad. The A was backwards. She still did that when she was in a hurry. He unfolded it in the dark of the cab. Dad. Aunt Denise says it's a date. That's okay. You are allowed. Please don't come home alone again. Love, Maya. P.S. If she is mean, you can leave. Adrian sat in a parking garage on Boylston Street and did not move for 45 seconds. She wrote it herself, Denise said quietly. I didn't help. I want that on the record. I spelled nothing. You put her up to it. Adrian, I have never in my life gotten that child to do anything she didn't already want to do, and neither have you, and neither did Claire. God rest her. A beat. Go inside. He folded the note back up. 4 folds. Wrong ones. I'm going inside, he said. The restaurant was called Aurelio's, and Adrian knew he'd made a mistake before the door finished closing behind him. It was the coats. Everybody's coat cost more than his whole outfit. There was a man taking coats, and the man taking coats had a better watch than Adrian had ever owned, and Adrian handed over his overcoat and immediately regretted it, because underneath it he was wearing his service jacket. The good one, the one Claire had pressed for him once and never gotten to press again, and in that room in that light, it looked less like a uniform and more like a costume. Name, sir. Carter, table for 2, 8 o'clock. The maitre d' tall silver at the temples a nameplate that said Julian ran a finger down the book. Carter, yes, right this way. Will the other party be joining shortly? That's the plan. Julian smiled the smile of a man who had heard that exact sentence 1,000 times and knew the odds. Table 12 was against the wall, which Adrian appreciated because a wall behind you is a wall nobody can walk up behind. He sat facing the room. He didn't decide to. He never decided to. The waiter came. Young guy, maybe 26, name was Emilio. Can I start you with something while you wait, sir? Water's fine. Sparkling or just water? Of course. 8:04. He put his phone face down on the tablecloth because putting it face up was a signal, and he was not going to be the guy sending that signal. 8:09. He turned it face up. Nothing. 8:14. He read the menu. There was a fish on it that cost $61. He did the math on $61 in Maya's college fund and put the menu down. 8:20. Emilio again. Would you like me to hold off, sir, or hold off? 8:26. He picked up the phone and typed, Hey, just making sure I've got the right place. Aurelio's 8 p.m. He looked at it for a long time. He deleted the second sentence. Then he deleted the first. Then he retyped both and sent it and immediately hated himself. August 31st. Read receipt. Read August 29th. Adrian looked at that for a while. There's a particular feeling that comes with a read receipt and no reply, and it is not anger. Anger would be a mercy. It's smaller than that, and it lives lower in the body. It's the feeling of being considered and declined. He'd been shot at. He'd been in a helicopter that lost hydraulics over open water. He'd stood in a hospital hallway at 3:40 in the morning while a doctor took off his glasses before speaking. Which is how you know that's how you always know they take off the glasses first. And somehow, this stupid small nothing thing in a restaurant with a fish that cost $61. This was doing something to him that none of that had. 8:47. The couple at the next table had started noticing. He could hear them. Not the words, just the shape of it. The little downshift in volume that means people have stopped talking about themselves and started talking about you. 8:52. The phone buzzed. Aaron. I'm so sorry. I can't do this. It's not you. I got in the car and I couldn't turn the key. I'm so sorry. Please tell Denise it's my fault. Adrian read it 3 times. Then he typed, It's okay. I hope you're all right. And he meant it, which was somehow the worst part. He set the phone down, and he did not get up. He would think about that later, why he didn't get up. Why he sat there for another 45 minutes at a table for 2, like a man guarding a grave. The honest answer, the one he wouldn't admit to anybody for a long time, was this. Going home meant walking through the door. And walking through the door meant Maya awake, because she'd be awake, she'd have talked Denise into letting her stay up, she'd be on the 3rd stair in her dinosaur pajamas, with her chin on her knees. And she'd ask. And he'd have to say, nobody came, sweetheart. And she'd say, that's okay, Dad, in that voice. That specific voice. The one that was already learning how to protect him. He'd rather sit in a restaurant for an hour and let strangers pity him than hear that voice. So he sat. Across the room, Sophia Whitmore was running the same clock and losing the same war. She'd chosen the window because the window meant one direction of exposure instead of 4. She'd chosen 7:50 as her arrival because arriving first meant control. She'd chosen the name on the reservation herself, said it out loud in the car twice to make sure she wouldn't hesitate on it. Sophie Witt. Not a lie, just a smaller truth. Her phone had been face down since 7:51 and it had buzzed 19 times. At 8:33 it buzzed a 20th time and she turned it over because 20 was her limit. 20 meant something was actually on fire. Priya. Not urgent. Ignore. But Kessler moved the Zurich call to 6 a.m. your time, and I said yes because you were unreachable, and I made a judgment call. Also, are you okay? You've been dark for 40 minutes. Priya. You're never dark for 40 minutes. Priya Sophia. Blink twice. Sophia typed, I'm fine. Zurich is fine. Go home. Priya. Priya. It's 8:35. Priya. You go home. Sophia turned the phone face down again. 26 minutes later, she turned it back over, and there it was from a number she'd only had for 11 days. Marcus Sophia. I have to be straight with you. My guy pulled your name, and I know who you are. I'm not going to sit across from Sophia Whitmore and pretend I don't. That's not a game I can win. I'd be lying the whole night. You deserve better than a man who's already losing. I'm sorry. She read it once. She did not read it twice. She set the phone down, picked up the wine, did not drink it, and set it back down. My guy pulled your name. That was the sentence. Not the rejection she'd survived. Rejection was Tuesday. It was my guy pulled your name. A stranger she'd been texting for 11 days. A man who'd made her laugh twice had put a person on her. Because that's what you did. That's what everyone did. You met a woman, and you ran her the way you'd run a used car. And the thing was, the truly hilarious thing, she'd have done the same to him. She had done the same to him. Sunday night, her security chief. Full workup. He came back clean. She hadn't told him either. Sophia Whitmore sat in a restaurant with a $51 billion company sitting on her shoulders like a coat made of lead, and she understood with terrible clarity that she had built a life in which it was not possible for anyone to simply meet her. There was no door left that led to her. She had bricked every one of them up herself and then wondered why nobody knocked. She looked at the empty chair. 97 minutes, she thought. Give it 100. 100's a round number. Then you go home and you take a pill and you get up at 5:40 for Zurich and you never do this again. That was when the chair went over across the room. The crack of it turned every head, including hers. She saw a big man standing over a fallen chair. Older than her by a few years. Broad through the shoulders in a way that money can't buy. Navy blue jacket under a coat that had been repaired at the cuff. She noticed that she noticed everything. It was a disease. She waited for the rest of it. She'd seen this before. The scene. The raised voice. The manager. The man who's been humiliated deciding to spread it around. Instead, he picked the chair up and set it back on its feet. Straightened it. Pushed it in. Squared it. And then he started walking. Not toward the door. Toward her. Sophia's hand went flat on the table. Not fear. Preparation. She had a script for this. She had 11 scripts for this. I'm expecting someone. I'm not interested. Please don't. I'd like you to leave. She had used all of them, and she could deliver any one of them without her voice changing pitch by a single hertz. He stopped. He leaned in. And instead of any of the 11 things she had scripts for, he said, "Your blind date didn't show up either." And every single script went out of her head at once. "Yeah, 97, she said. "That's how long I've been here too." Then we're the same math problem. Julian arrived at Adrian's elbow with the frictionless speed of a man saving his own evening. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask." "It's fine, Julian." Sophia didn't look at him. "Ms. Ma'am, I'm not sure." Julian. Now she looked at him. It was not a hard look. It didn't need to be. "It's fine." Julian evaporated. Adrian was still standing there, and now that the 11 steps were spent and the words were out, he had absolutely no idea what to do with his hands. "I apologize," he said. "That was—" He stopped. Started over. "I've been sitting over there for an hour and a half feeling like a specimen, and I looked over here, and I figured there was exactly one other person in this building who knew what that felt like. And I thought if I walked out that door without saying one true thing to one other human being tonight, I was going to have a bad drive home." He nodded once. "That's the whole reason. There's no better one. Have a good night, ma'am." He turned to go. "Sit down." He stopped. "I'm sorry." "Sit down," she said again. "You've already paid for the chair." Adrian looked at the chair, the empty one, the one that had been pushed in tight for 97 minutes. "That's somebody's chair," he said. "No," Sophia said. "It isn't. That's the point of tonight." He sat. For a moment, neither of them said anything, and it was the least awkward silence of Adrian's adult life, which surprised him. Emilio appeared, looked at the two of them, looked at the chair, and made a decision that he would later describe to his roommate as the single best call of my career. "Can I bring you both something?" Sophia opened her mouth. "Bourbon," Adrian said. "Neat. Whatever's cheapest." Emilio blinked. "Sir, our cheapest," Adrian said. "I'm serious. I want you to look at the list and find the number at the bottom." "2," Sophia said. Emilio left. "You didn't have to do that," Adrian said. "I know. I can afford a drink. That's not why I did it." She turned the wine glass a quarter turn precisely the way you'd align something on a desk. "You said cheapest out loud in this room to a waiter without lowering your voice. Do you know how long it's been since I heard anybody in a room like this say, a true thing at full volume? That's a low bar." "It's the lowest bar," she said. "It's on the floor, and nobody clears it." He laughed. It came out of him rough and surprised, like something that had rusted shut. She heard it, and something in her face moved. "Okay," Adrian said. "Before this goes any further, I want to propose something, and I want you to know up front, it's a little strange." "I've had a strange 97 minutes. "Rules." She raised an eyebrow. "Rules. 3. He held up fingers. 1. No last names. "Why?" "You'll see. 2. No jobs. What you do, where you work, what you're worth, what you drive. None of it. It doesn't come up." Sophia's hand stopped moving on the wine glass. 3. Adrian said. "Nobody performs. If a question's too much, you say pass, and the other person doesn't push, doesn't sulk, doesn't make a face. You just say pass, and we move on. Deal." She stared at him for a very long moment. "Why?" she said. And it wasn't a question so much as a demand. "Because I've been on 4 of these things in 4 years, and every one of them is a job interview." He leaned back. "First 10 minutes it's resumes. What do you do? Oh, how interesting. And then they're not listening anymore. They're pricing you. And by minute 11 you already know how it ends, and you've got another hour and 50 minutes to be polite about it." He shook his head. "I don't have another hour and 50 minutes of polite in me. Not tonight. So no resumes. Just the 2 of us, and whatever's actually in there." Sophia Whitmore sat very still. Because he had just described in about 40 seconds the exact architecture of her entire adult life, the pricing minute 11, the hour and 50 of polite, and he had described it without knowing who she was, and if he had known who she was, he could never have said it, because the whole thing would have been a pitch. The one man in America who couldn't possibly be pitching her was the one man in America who had no idea who she was. The bourbon arrived. "Deal," she said. "Okay." He picked up his glass. "First names." She almost said it. The real one. The whole one. She felt it come up her throat and stop against her teeth. "Sophie," she said. "Adrian." They didn't clink. They just drank. "That's terrible," Adrian said. "It's appalling." "That's $12 right there. That's the taste of $12. I'd like to formally register that this was your idea." "Noted." She would think about that first hour for the rest of her life, and what she'd remember most was that he asked things nobody asked. Not "what do you do?" Not "where'd you go to school?" Not "how'd you end up here?" He asked, "What's the last thing you did that you weren't good at?" Sophia's mouth opened, closed. "That's a strange question. It's the only one that gets you anywhere." He turned his glass on the tablecloth. "Anybody'll tell you what they're good at. Takes 4 seconds. But ask a person the last thing they were bad at, and either they've got a real answer, or they've got nothing, and either way, you learn everything." "Pass," she said. "Okay." And he moved on, just like that. No face, no push. He picked up a piece of bread and said, "Then I'll go. Piano." "Piano. My wife played." He said it flat, and he said wife, and he did not look away. Not professionally, just she played. "So about 3 years ago, I got it in my head that I ought to learn, and I found a woman on Craigslist who taught kids. And I paid her $30 a week to sit next to a grown man and lie to him." "How bad?" "Ma'am, I have hands like this." He held them up. "I have hands that were built to carry things. She'd say lighter, and I'd go lighter, and it'd still sound like somebody dropped a filing cabinet." Sophia laughed. Out loud. In public. She actually put her hand up to catch it, which she hadn't done since she was 19. "How long did you last?" she said. 11 weeks. "That's a long time to be bad at something." "That's the shortest I've ever been bad at something," Adrian said. "You should see me at grieving. 4 years, 7 months, still terrible at it." And the laugh in her chest turned into something else on the way out. "Adrian." You don't have to say anything, he said. That's the other thing about the rules. You don't have to say anything. Sophia looked at this man in an old coat with a cracked steering wheel and a cuff that had been sewn back on by hand, and she said, "Golf." "What?" "The last thing I was bad at. Golf." She said it fast, like ripping tape. "I'm bad at golf, and it's a problem because She caught it, cut it, redirected. "In my life, a lot of things get decided on golf courses. So 4 years ago I hired a coach. Best in the country. Made him sign a non-disclosure agreement." Adrian stared at her. "You made your golf coach sign an NDA?" "Yes." "Why?" "So nobody would find out I was bad at golf." There was a beat of silence. And then Adrian Carter put his head back and laughed so hard, the couple behind him turned around, and Sophia sat there absolutely mortified for 2 full seconds before she started laughing too. And once it started, she couldn't stop it. And she laughed until her eyes went wet, and she had to press her napkin against them, and Emilio watched from across the room and quietly decided not to interrupt for at least 10 minutes. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard," Adrian gasped. "I know. That's genuinely tragic." "I know it is. You paid a man to keep the secret that you're bad at a game. When you say it out loud..." "I'm going to say it out loud a lot," Adrian said. "That's going in the vault. That's mine now." She wiped under her eyes with 2 fingers carefully and looked at him, and for the first time in 11 years, Sophia Whitmore was not the most powerful person at her own table, and it felt like taking off shoes that had never fit. Emilio came back around 10:20. "The kitchen's closing in 40 minutes. Can I get you anything? Anything at all?" Adrian looked at Sophia. Sophia looked at Adrian. "What's cheap?" Adrian said. Emilio smiled. "Nothing, sir." "What's cheapest?" "The chicken." "How much?" $52. "For a chicken?" "It's a very well-connected chicken." Sophia laughed again, twice in one night, twice in 20 minutes, and Emilio would tell people about this table for years. "2 chickens," Adrian said. "And whatever she wants after that, because I have a feeling this is going to be the only meal I ever eat in this building, and I'd like to go out heavy." "Very good, sir." When he was gone, Sophia said quietly, "I'd like to pay for..." "Nope." Adrian. "Rule 2, he said. "Money's a job. Jobs don't come up." That's an aggressive reading of Rule 2. "It's my rule. I read it how I want." She looked at him and thought, he has no idea. He has no idea that I could buy this building tonight and not notice on the statement. He's about to spend $180 he cannot afford on a chicken and a bad bourbon, and he's going to do it happily, and if I stop him, I take something from him that I have no right to take. And she thought for the first time in a very long time about how many people she had bought a chicken for and never once let buy one for her. "Okay," she said. "Okay." At 10:41, his phone buzzed on the table face up, and he flipped it over, and his whole body changed. Sophia saw it happen. The shoulders came down. Something behind his eyes came on. "I have to take this," he said. 10 seconds. I'm sorry." "Take it." He put it to his ear. "Hey, Bug." And a voice came through the phone, small, indignant, wide awake. "Dad, it is 11 o'clock. It's 10:41. Aunt Denise said I could stay up till you got home, and then she fell asleep on the couch, and now I'm just up alone, like a ghost." "You are not a ghost." "I'm ghost adjacent." Adrian closed his eyes for a second. "Where'd you get that?" "You say it." "I do say it," he admitted. Across the table, Sophia had gone completely still. "Dad." The voice dropped, went careful, went 7. "Did she come?" Adrian's jaw moved. "No, sweetheart," he said. "She didn't come." There was a pause on the line. And then, in a voice that broke Sophia Whitmore's heart from 4 feet away, through a phone speaker from a child she had never met. "That's okay, Dad. It's okay. Some people just get scared. That's not about you." Adrian didn't answer right away. Sophia watched a 38-year-old man who had been shot at on 2 continents look down at a tablecloth and lose completely for about 3 seconds. "Who told you that?" he said finally. "Nobody. I thought it." "You thought that?" "Yeah. By yourself." "Dad, I'm 7. I'm not a baby." "Copy that," he said, and his voice was not quite right. "Bug, go get in bed. I'll be home in 40 minutes and I'll come check you." "You always say check and then you just stand there." "That is checking." "That's staring." "Maya." "Fine. Okay. Bye. Love you." "Love you." He set the phone down. He did not look up for a moment. When he did, Sophia said very quietly, "Pass." And Adrian Carter laughed once, a short broken thing, and shook his head. "No," he said. "No, I'll take that one." He reached into his inside coat pocket and pulled out a piece of paper folded 4 times wrong, one corner sticking out. He put it on the table between them and turned it so it faced her. "She wrote that this afternoon," he said. "Put it in my pocket without telling me. My sister-in-law says she didn't help. I don't believe her, but I don't disbelieve her either." Sophia looked at it. She didn't touch it. "Can I?" she said. "Go ahead." She unfolded it. Purple marker. A backwards A. Dad. Aunt Denise says it's a date. That's okay. You are allowed. Please don't come home alone again. Love, Maya. P.S. If she is mean, you can leave. Sophia Whitmore read 7-year-old handwriting in a restaurant in Boston, and something enormous and long buried turned over in her chest. You are allowed. Nobody had ever said that to her. Not once. Not her father, not her board, not her fiancé, not the 22,000 people who worked for her and would have jumped off a bridge if she'd asked politely. You are allowed. She refolded it. Carefully. 4 folds. She tried to match his creases and got it wrong, and he watched her try, and he did not say anything about it. She slid it back across the table. Adrian, she said. Yeah, I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me get all the way through it. He looked at her. Okay, he said. And Sophia Whitmore opened her mouth to break Rule 2, and her phone lit up on the table between them. Not a text, a call. And the screen said in letters big enough to read from 4 feet away, Priya emergency. It rang. Adrian looked at the screen, then at her. You should get that, he said. Sophia looked at the phone. She looked at the man across from her. She looked at the empty chair beside him, the one that had been pushed in tight for 97 minutes, the one that had belonged to nobody, the one she'd told him was the whole point of tonight. And Sophia Whitmore reached out with one finger and turned her phone face down. No, she said. I shouldn't. The phone rang a second time before her hand had even come back to the table. Sophia didn't look at it. She looked at him. You're not going to ask, she said. Ask what? Who it is, what the emergency is. Why a woman sitting alone in a restaurant on a Thursday night has a person in her phone labeled emergency in capital letters. Adrian shrugged one shoulder. Rule 2. That's not Rule 2. Rule 2 is jobs. That could be your mother. That could be a hospital. Is it a hospital? No. Then it's Rule 2, he said, and picked up his fork. The phone rang a third time, buzzed itself in a slow half circle across the tablecloth, and went dark. Sophia stared at the back of it. 22,000 employees. 11 years. She could count on one hand the number of times Priya Raman had used the word emergency, and she could tell you exactly what each one had cost. Okay, Adrian said, chewing. This chicken is $52. It is. It's a chicken. You've said. I'm going to keep saying it. It's the best chicken I've ever had in my life, and I want you to know that's the worst news I've received all year. He pointed the fork at her. Because now I know. Now I've got the number in my head. Now every chicken for the rest of my life is going to be a disappointment, and it's your fault. How is it my fault? You sat here. You made it worth staying. Sophia looked down at her plate, so he wouldn't see her face do the thing it was doing. The phone buzzed again. Text this time. Priya. Pick up. Priya. I don't care what you're doing. Pick up. Priya Halloran called Kessler direct. At home. Tonight. Sophia read it upside down without touching the phone, which was a skill she'd developed in 11 years of boardrooms and had never once been proud of. Her stomach dropped out of her body and kept going. Adrian saw her face change. He didn't ask. He put his fork down. Go take it, he said. I said no. Sophie. First time he'd used the name. It landed wrong and right at the same time. I don't know what that is. I don't want to know what that is. But I've watched a lot of people get bad news, and you just got bad news. And the difference between people who handle it and people who don't is about 90 seconds. He nodded toward the front. Go stand by the coats. I'll be here. You'll be here. Where am I going? I already paid for the chair. She stood. She was aware standing that she had not asked a man's permission to do anything since she was 26 years old, and that what she'd just done wasn't asking permission. It was something worse and softer, and she didn't have a word for it. She took the phone and walked to the coat room, and Priya answered before it rang. Oh, thank God. Talk. Halloran called Kessler's house, his house Sophia, at 8:40 on a Thursday. Kessler's assistant confirmed it because she's terrified of me, which is the only good thing that's happened tonight. Content? I don't have content. I have a 41-minute call between the man who's supposed to be signing with us on Tuesday and the one board member who spent 3 years explaining to anyone who will listen that you are, quote, emotionally unsuited to scale. Sophia closed her eyes. Say the rest of it, she said. Sophia, Priya, you've got a second thing. You always lead with the first thing, and then you sit on the second thing for 11 seconds while you decide if I can take it. It's been about 9. Say it. Silence on the line. Then, Halloran's been calling board members individually, not a group email, not a meeting request, one at a time from his cell at night. 6 of them so far that I know about. A breath. That's not a disagreement. That's a count. Sophia put her hand flat against the wall of the coat room. 11 years. She had built the thing out of nothing, out of a rented server closet, and a line of credit against her mother's house. And there was a man in a Beacon Hill townhouse right now, with a legal pad and a list of names doing arithmetic on her life. How long do I have? She said. Board meets the 12th. That's 26 days. Then I have 26 days. You have 26 days if he doesn't move early. And Sophia, listen to me. He's calling Kessler because if the Zurich deal dies, he doesn't need the 12th. If Zurich dies, he can call an emergency session in 72 hours, and he'll have the votes before you've finished reading the notice. Priya's voice cracked just slightly, and Priya's voice never cracked. You need to be on a plane. Tonight? Tonight would be ideal, yes. Sophia turned around. Through the archway across 40 feet of restaurant, she could see a man in an old navy jacket sitting at a table with 2 plates on it, not looking at his phone, not looking at the door, not looking around the room to see who was watching him. Just sitting, waiting. Where are you? Priya said. You've been dark for 3 hours. You've never been dark for 3 hours. I've had a genuinely unpleasant evening imagining you in a ditch. I'm at dinner. With Marcus Sophia, I ran him. Marcus didn't come. A pause. Oh, Priya said. And then in a completely different voice, a voice with no assistant in it at all. Oh, honey. Don't. I'm not doing anything. You're doing the voice. I'm allowed 1 voice a year and I'm cashing it. A rustle like Priya had sat down. So who are you at dinner with? Sophia looked across the restaurant again. Adrian had picked up his fork. He was eating a $52 chicken like a man who intended to get every dollar out of it. As she watched, Emilio came by with a water pitcher, and Adrian said something, and Emilio laughed, not the professional laugh, the real one, the one that got away from him. Somebody who doesn't know, Sophia said, doesn't know what anything. There was a long silence on the line. Sophia, Priya said carefully, in 11 years I have never heard you sound like that. Book Zurich for Tuesday. Tuesday? Kessler doesn't want to be chased. Kessler wants to be wanted, and there's a difference, and Halloran doesn't know it, because Halloran has never wanted anything he couldn't buy. Sophia's voice went flat and cold, and completely certain. If I get on a plane tonight, Kessler knows I'm scared. Tuesday. Set it for Tuesday and let him sit in it. And Halloran? Halloran is counting names. She almost smiled. Let him count. He's about to find out what happens when you count out loud in a house with thin walls. There she is, Priya said quietly. Go home, Priya. It's 11. Go home. Sophia hung up, and she stood in the coat room of a restaurant on Boylston Street for another 20 seconds with her hand flat against the wall, because the truth was that her hands were shaking, and she wasn't going to walk back out there with shaking hands. She'd been shaking since 8:52. Not since Priya's call. Since 97 minutes. She came back and sat down, and Adrian didn't ask. He genuinely actually did not ask. He pushed her plate an inch toward her and said, "It's gone cold," which, as far as I'm concerned, is the greatest crime in this building tonight, and I want the record to show I offered to have them fire it up again. And Emilio said something in Italian I don't think was polite. He's Portuguese. Even worse. She sat down. She picked up her fork. Her hands weren't shaking anymore, which she noticed and did not examine. Adrian. Yeah. You were going to let me say something, before the phone. I remember. I'm going to say it now. He set his fork down and gave her his whole attention. All of it, immediately. The way almost nobody on earth ever gave anybody anything, and Sophia opened her mouth to say, "My name is Sophia Whitmore. I run a company you've heard of. I'm worth more money than you can hold in your head, and in 26 days, a man named Halloran is going to try to take it from me," and the lights went half down. Emilio was there, agonized. "I am so sorry. Kitchen's closed and they turn the lights down because they think it's classier than telling people to leave. It's not. It's just darker." He set the check folder down, like it personally offended him. "Whenever you're ready. Genuinely no rush. I'll take the heat." Adrian reached for it. Sophia's hand got there first. They both stopped her fingers on the leather, his half an inch away. "Rule 2, Adrian said. "I'm invoking a rule you don't know about." "There is no rule I don't know about. I made all of them." "Rule 4, she said. "The person who was stood up worse pays." "That's not a rule." "It is now." "Okay, but I want it on the record that I was stood up by text at 8:52 after a read receipt." "I was stood up by a man who hired someone to look into me first," Sophia said. Adrian's hand stopped. "He what?" "He had someone run me. Background. Everything." She kept her voice perfectly light, and she watched his face while she did it, and she would never in her life admit how much rode on the next 4 seconds. "Then he texted me to say he knew what he'd find, and he couldn't sit across from it. So he didn't come." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. "What did he find?" he said. And there it was, the fork in the road, wide open, and all she had to do was walk through it. "Pass," Sophia said. Adrian nodded once, took his hand off the check. "Then Rule 4 stands," he said. "You win. You had a worse night than me. Congratulations." She laughed 3 times now in one night, and she slid a black card into the folder without looking at it. And Adrian, God bless him, was already standing up and shrugging into his coat and not watching, because it would never have occurred to him to watch. Emilio took the folder. Emilio looked at the card. Emilio's entire face performed an act of heroism that Sophia would remember for the rest of her life. He did not blink. He did not glance up. He took the card, brought it back, and said, "Thank you, ma'am. Have a good night, sir. Come back for the chicken." "I can't afford the chicken," Adrian said. "Then come back and look at the chicken." "That's fair." And they walked out. The cold hit like a hand. Boston in February. At 11:15, the wind coming up Boylston off the water with nothing in its way. That particular cold that isn't weather so much as opinion. Sophia's coat was $3,000 and had been designed by a man in Milan who had never stood outside in his life. She made a sound. A small, undignified, entirely involuntary sound. Adrian laughed. "That's a beautiful coat." "Don't. That is a magnificent coat. That coat has never had a job. Adrian." He was already taking his off. "No," Sophia said. "No, absolutely not." "It's an old coat." "No." "Ma'am, it's 14 degrees. Then you'll be cold." "I'll be fine, He stopped. She watched him stop. Watched the sentence hit a wall inside him and stand there. "You were about to say something about your job," she said. Adrian closed his mouth. "Say it," she said. "Rule 2. Say it anyway. I'm giving you a waiver. 1 sentence." He held the coat out, and she didn't take it, and they stood there on the sidewalk in the wind like 2 idiots. "I've slept outside and worse," he said. "That's the sentence. That's a terrible sentence. That sentence has 6 other sentences inside it. That's all you're getting. Adrian, take the coat, Sophie." And she did. Because she was cold, and because it was easier than the alternative, and because this was the part she'd think about at 2 in the morning, because nobody had handed her anything in 11 years that didn't have an invoice attached. It smelled like cedar and machine oil, and something underneath that was just him. It was enormous on her. The sleeves ate her hands. "You look ridiculous," he said, delighted. "I'm aware. You look like a kid in her dad's—" He stopped again, recalibrated. "You look warm." "I look ridiculous and warm. That's the best available outcome." And then a black Escalade pulled to the curb 20 feet up, and its hazards came on. Sophia's whole body went rigid inside the borrowed coat. The driver's door opened. A man got out, big, calm gray at the temples, 40-something, wearing a black overcoat and the specific patience of a person who has waited outside a great many buildings. "Ms. Ray." He stopped. He looked at her. He looked at the man beside her in a navy jacket with no coat on in 14 degrees. Ray Delgado had driven Sophia Whitmore for 6 years and had never once needed a full sentence. "Ma'am," he said, "it's cold. I'll be right here." He got back in the car and shut the door. Adrian looked at the Escalade, then at her. "That's your ride," he said. "That's my ride." "That's a nice ride." "Adrian, I'm not asking," he said, and he wasn't, and that was the astonishing thing, he genuinely wasn't. "That's a good driver. He didn't say your name. He looked at me, and he made a decision about whether I was a problem in about a second and a half, and he decided I wasn't, which for the record is a real skill, and most people don't have it." He nodded toward the car. "Go get warm. I've got a truck 4 blocks that way, and a 7-year-old who's absolutely still awake." He held out his hand for the coat. Sophia looked at his hand. And then she did something she had not done in 11 years, which was make a decision without running it against a single downside. "Walk me," she said. "What?" "Not to the car. Walk me, 4 blocks, to your truck. It's 14 degrees. Then we'll walk fast." Adrian stared at her. "You have a heated Escalade," he said slowly, "with a driver in it running 20 feet away." "I do. And you want to walk 4 blocks in the cold to look at a truck?" "Yes." "Why?" And Sophia Whitmore, who had a Zurich call at 5:40 a.m., and a board member counting names and 26 days, said, "Because in about 9 hours, I have to go back to being the person I am, and I would like 9 more minutes of not." Adrian didn't say anything for a second. Then he walked over to the Escalade and knocked on the window. It came down. "Ray, right?" "Yes, sir." "Adrian, she's going to walk 4 blocks with me to look at a very bad truck, and then she's coming right back here, and it's going to take about 12 minutes. He nodded up the street. "I'm telling you that, because if I were you, I'd want to be told instead of watching a strange man walk off with somebody I'm responsible for." Ray looked at him. Something in Ray's face, some door somewhere, came open about a 1/4 inch. "Appreciate that." Ray said. 12 minutes. I'll roll it up behind you. The window went up. Adrian came back. Sophia was staring at him. What? He said. Nothing. You've got a look. I don't have a look. I've never had a look in my life. She started walking. 4 blocks. Go. They walked, and she found out over 4 blocks in the freezing wind that Adrian Carter could not stop talking about his daughter once you got him started, and that he was faintly embarrassed about this and could not help it. She's got a system, he said, for the animals. She's got a spreadsheet. She's 7, and she's got a spreadsheet. For what? Ranking them. She ranks animals, and it's not favorites. I want to be clear. It's not a favorites list. She's very firm on this. It's a tier system, and the tiers have criteria, and last month she demoted the dolphin. She demoted a dolphin. To tier 3. On what grounds? Overrated and knows it. Sophia laughed so hard she had to stop walking. She said that she wrote it. It's in the notes column. There's a notes column, Sophie. Where did she get that? I have no idea. That's what I keep telling people. Everybody assumes I did it. I did not do it. I've got a high school diploma and a lot of opinions about weather. That's my whole intellectual profile. She came out like this. He shook his head. Her mother was smart. Her mother was, Claire could do the Sunday crossword in pen at the kitchen table while arguing with her sister on the phone. In pen, Sophie. He said it easily. That was the thing Sophia kept catching on. He said Claire the way you'd say any name, not carefully, not like a landmine. You talk about her, Sophia said. Course I do. Most people don't. She chose the words, I've known people who lost people. They stopped saying the name. Yeah, well. Adrian put his hands in his jacket pockets. First year I did that, whole year. Couldn't say it. And Maya was 3, and she stopped saying it too because she was watching me. That's all they do is watch you. And one day I realized I'd taught a 3-year-old that her mother was a thing you weren't allowed to mention. His jaw worked. So I stopped that. Cold. Started saying it every day on purpose out loud at dinner whether I wanted to or not. Your mom would have hated this movie. Your mom put the mustard on the wrong shelf her whole life. Every day. Did it work? She's 7, and she can say my mom died out loud without her voice changing, Adrian said. So yeah, it worked. Sophia walked half a block without saying anything. My father died when I was 19, she said. Adrian didn't look over. He just kept walking, which was somehow exactly correct. That's rough. It wasn't actually. She stopped, started again. He was a difficult man and he made a lot of money and then he lost most of it and he never once in 19 years told me a single true thing. And when he died, I felt relief and then I spent about 6 years being disgusted with myself for feeling relief and then I stopped. She pulled his coat tighter. And what's left is that I don't actually know what it's like to miss someone. I've never done it. I'm 36 years old and I've never missed a single person. Adrian was quiet for most of a block. That's the saddest thing you've said all night, he said. And you told me about the golf NDA. And Sophia Whitmore laughed on a freezing sidewalk in Boston at 11:30 at night, and then without any warning at all, the laugh went sideways and turned into something with tears in it, and she had to stop and put her hand over her mouth. Adrian stopped too. He didn't touch her. He didn't say hey. He didn't do a single one of the 11 things she had scripts for. He said, take your time. Truck's not going anywhere. That's actually its primary characteristic. She laughed through it, which was worse, which made it come faster. I'm sorry. Don't. I don't do this. I know. I don't. Sophie, very quiet. I know. She got herself back. Took about 40 seconds. She wiped under both eyes with 2 fingers carefully, and looked up and the truck was right there. She looked at it. This is it. Don't. This is a terrible truck. It's got 240,000 miles on it, and it starts every single time, Adrian said, which Sophie is more than I can say for anybody I've ever met. There was a booster seat in the back. Sophia looked at it through the window. A purple booster seat with a sticker of a shark on the headrest and a library book face down on it, and a pair of mittens on a string, and something in her chest folded over on itself. Tier 1, Adrian said, following her eyes. Shark. Uncontested. 3 years running. Over the dolphin. Way over the dolphin. It's not close. She says the dolphin's doing a bit. Sophia started to take off the coat. Keep it. I can't keep your coat. You can keep it till you give it back. She stopped with one arm out of the sleeve. That's a trick, she said. That's a strategy. Different thing. He opened the truck door. It groaned. You've got my coat. That means one of two things happens. Either you keep a stranger's coat forever, which sounds like it'd bother you. It would bother me enormously. Or you call me. Sophia stood on the sidewalk in a dead man's cold, with her arm half out of a borrowed coat, and looked at a 38-year-old Navy officer who had just outmaneuvered her. She put her arm back in. That's the most calculated thing anyone's done to me in 5 years, she said. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. Sophie. Adrian said, I've been out of the game for 4 years and 7 months. I've got one move. That was the move. It's the only one I've got, and I used it on the first night, and now I've got nothing. He climbed in. Go get in the warm car. Ray's been counting. She stepped back. He put the key in. The truck turned over on the first try, exactly like he'd said it would. He rolled the window down. Hey, he said. What? You were going to tell me something. Twice. At the table. Sophia stood there in his coat. Yes, she said. You still want to. 4 seconds, 97 minutes, 26 days. Not tonight, she said. Adrian nodded. Okay, he said, and then, whatever it is, Sophie, I've been sat across from by people who were about to tell me somebody was dead. That's what your face is doing right now, and whatever it is, I promise you it's smaller than that. He put it in gear. Call me when the coat gets heavy, he said. And he drove off in a truck with 240,000 miles on it, and Sophia Whitmore stood on the sidewalk and watched him go, and understood with total clarity that she had just lied to the only honest man she'd met in a decade, and that she was going to keep doing it. Yeah, he came through the door at 12:04, and Maya was on the third stair. Dinosaur pajamas, chin on her knees, wide awake. You said 40 minutes, she said. I got delayed. That's 83 minutes. You did that in your head. Dad, it's subtraction. Adrian sat down on the second stair, which put his head about level with hers, and Maya immediately leaned over and put her whole weight against his shoulder like she'd been saving it up. You're cold, she said, accusing. It's February. Where's your coat? And Adrian Carter opened his mouth to answer, and discovered with some surprise that he didn't have one ready. Denise's voice came from the living room, thick with couch sleep. Adrian, is that what time is it? Midnight. Midnight. A rustle. Denise appeared in the doorway with a blanket around her shoulders and her hair on one side of her head. It's midnight. You left at 7:30. Erin texted me at 9 and told me she didn't go, and I have been sitting on that information for 3 hours like a... She stopped. She looked at him. Where's your coat? Denise said. Told you, Maya said. Adrian, where is your coat? It's a long story. Denise sat down slowly in the doorway. Maya, she said. Bed. No. Maya. Aunt Denise, this is literally the most interesting thing that's happened in this house in bedbug. Adrian nudged her up. Go, I'll come check. You'll stare. I'll check. Dad. She stopped 3 stairs up and turned around, and her face did the thing it did. The careful thing, the 7 going on 40 thing. Did somebody come after all? Adrian looked up at his daughter. Somebody was already there, he said. Maya considered this. That's not an answer, she said. No, it isn't. That's a dad answer. It's the only kind I've got. She went up. She stopped at the top. I'm not asleep, so if you talk about it, I'm going to hear it. Then I'll whisper. You can't whisper. You've never whispered in your life. Maya. The door closed. Denise waited 3 full seconds. "Talk," she said. "There's nothing." "Adrian Michael Carter, you walked into this house at midnight with no coat smiling." "I'm not smiling." "You're smiling. You have got there's a thing your face is doing that I have not seen your face do since 2019, and I'd like the file on it, please, immediately in full." So he told her. Not all of it. The shape of it. The 97 minutes. The chair. The 11 words. The rules. The chicken. The golf. NDA. Denise made a sound like a kettle at the golf NDA and had to put the blanket over her face. He left out the Escalade. He didn't decide to leave out the Escalade. He just got to it and went around it the way you step around a hole in the floor without thinking about why. When he was done, Denise was quiet for a while. "Adrian," she said. "Yeah." "What's her last name?" "Don't know." "You don't know." That was the rule. "You spent 4 hours with a woman and you don't know her last name." That was the rule, Denise. That was the whole, "What does she do?" "Don't know that either." Denise looked at him. "Adrian," she said slowly, "what kind of woman agrees to that?" And Adrian Carter opened his mouth and found for the second time in 10 minutes that he didn't have anything to put in it. "A tired one," he said finally. Denise let that sit. "Okay," she said. "Okay." She stood up, gathered the blanket, and then stopped in the doorway. "One more question, and then I'm going home, and I'm going to think about this for approximately 11 consecutive days." "Go." "Why'd you give her the coat?" Adrian rubbed the back of his neck. "It was cold," he said. "Adrian." "It was cold, Denise." "You've had that coat 11 years. Claire hated that coat. Claire tried to throw that coat out twice, and you took it out of the garbage, and the second time you took it out of the garbage at the curb in front of the neighbors. It's a good coat. You gave it to a woman whose last name you don't know," Denise said, "and you're going to lie in bed tonight and tell yourself it's because it was cold." She kissed the top of his head on the way past, which she had not done since the funeral. "Go check on your kid," she said. And by check, I mean stare. At 5:40 in the morning, Sophia Whitmore took the Zurich call from her home office with a coat that smelled like cedar and machine oil hanging on the back of her chair. Priya noticed it at 6:15 when she came in with coffee. Priya said nothing for 4 hours. At 10:20 she cracked. "That's a men's coat." "Yes. That's a men's coat, and it's old, and there's a repair on the cuff, and it's been hand-sewn badly by somebody who does not sew, and it is hanging on the back of the chair of a woman who once returned a cashmere throw because the stitch count was inconsistent." "Priya, I'm not asking a question. You're asking 11. "I'm asking one," Priya said. "And the one is, does this have anything to do with why you sounded like a human being on the phone last night?" Sophia kept typing. "Kessler," she said. "Tuesday. Confirmed. Confirmed. 10 a.m. Zurich, 4 a.m. yours. And Sophia. And Halloran's up to 9 names." Priya's mouth closed. "How do you know that?" "Because I called 4 of them myself at 6:30 this morning and asked how their weekend was," Sophia said. "And 3 of them told me, and 1 of them didn't. And the one who didn't was Ellsworth, and Ellsworth has never in his life declined to talk about his weekend." She looked up. "He goes sailing, Priya. He'd tell a fire hydrant about the sailing." So Ellsworth's flipped. Ellsworth's counted. There's a difference. Sophia leaned back. Halloran isn't building a coalition. He's building a narrative. He's going to walk into the 12th with a story about a woman who's emotionally unsuited to scale, and he's going to need evidence, and he doesn't have any because I haven't given him any in 11 years. "You haven't given him any," Priya repeated. "No, Sophia." Priya sat down on the arm of the chair, which she had never done. "You went dark for 3 hours last night, on the night your board member started making calls, and you came back with a coat." Sophia stopped typing. "Say it," she said. "I'm just—" "Priya, say the actual thing." Priya took a breath. "If Halloran needs a story," she said, "you just started living in one." The room got very quiet. "He doesn't know," Sophia said. "He doesn't know yet. There's nothing to know. I had dinner. You had dinner with a man whose name you won't say out loud to me, Priya said. At a restaurant that has a valet, a coat-check 12 staff, and a man named Julian who has been bought before Sophia. I have personally seen Julian be bought. Sophia said nothing. And Ray drove you home, Priya said, at 11:41, and Ray's log says he sat on Boylston for 2 hours and 11 minutes, and Ray's log goes to facilities and facilities reports to operations and operations reports to a man who plays squash with Halloran on Thursdays. The clock on the wall did 4 seconds. Okay, Sophia said quietly. Yeah. Okay. So, I did something, Priya said. This morning. Before you tell me not to, I want you to know I did it at 4 a.m. I did it myself. I didn't use the department, and I did it because if there's a man in your life, the other side is going to find him in about 6 days, and I would rather we find him first. And she put a folder on the desk. Manila. Plain. About half an inch thick. Sophia looked at it. She did not touch it. Priya, she said. What is that? It's him. What is that? Sophia, you ran him. Sophia's voice didn't rise. It went down, which was worse, which was the voice that had ended 3 careers. 12 hours. He bought me a chicken, and he gave me his coat, and he didn't ask me a single question, and you ran him. Yes. Get it off my desk. No. Priya. No. Priya stood up. Because last night a man named Marcus did exactly this, and it broke your heart, and I know that, and I did it anyway, and I'd do it again because I've watched you get eaten for 11 years by people who were charming. First, he's not. You don't know what he is, that's the point. You had rules, Sophia, no names, no jobs, and you didn't make those rules. He did, and you didn't think for 1 second about who benefits from a rule like that? Stop. Priya stopped. Sophia was standing. She didn't remember standing. The folder sat there on the desk between them, plain and closed, and half an inch thick, and Sophia Whitmore looked at it and felt the entire architecture of the last 11 years come down on her shoulders like weather. My guy pulled your name. 11 days of texts and 2 laughs, and a man had put a person on her, and it had felt like being handled. And now here she was. I'm not opening it, she said. Sophia, I'm not opening it. She pushed it, 2 inches, toward Priya. Because if I open that, then I'm him. Then I'm every single person who's ever sat across from me and already known the number before I sat down. Then there was never a table. There was never a chair. Her voice did something she hated. There was 1 hour, Priya. 1 hour in 11 years where somebody didn't know. You want me to burn it for a file? Priya's eyes were wet. Yes, she said. I do. I want you to burn it. I'll help you burn it. Why? And Priya Raman, who had never once in 6 years said anything she hadn't rehearsed, said, Because I opened it, Sophia. The room stopped. You what? I opened it. Page 1. That's all I got. Priya's hand was shaking. And then I put it in a folder, and I brought it up here, and I've been standing in this room for 4 hours, trying to figure out how to hand it to you, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't say it out loud, so I'm going to do this instead. She reached over, she opened the cover, and she turned the first page around so it faced Sophia. It wasn't Adrian Carter. It was a woman. It was an accident report, 11 pages dated 4 years and 7 months ago, and there was a name on it, and there was a second name on it in the section marked Vehicle 2 Operator, and Sophia Whitmore read that second name, and every drop of blood left her face. No, she said. Sophia. No. I need you to sit down. Priya, that's not that can't. Sit down, Priya said. Please, please sit down. Because you know that name and I know you know that name, and I've spent 4 hours praying to God I was wrong. She sat down. Not because Priya asked. Because her legs did it. The page was upside down from where she landed, and she turned it with one finger, slowly the way you'd turn over a card you already knew. Massachusetts Uniform Crash Report. Route 3 southbound. 6:52 a.m. Vehicle 1 operator. Carter, Claire M. 34. Vehicle 2. Operator, Halloran, Daniel G. 24. Vehicle 2. Registered owner, Whitmore Global Technologies Fleet Services Division. The office was so quiet she could hear the radiator. "Say it out loud," Sophia said. "Sophia, say it out loud." "Priya, because if you don't say it out loud, then I'm going to sit here and decide I read it wrong." Priya's voice came out flat and careful, like she was carrying something with two hands. 4 years and 7 months ago, a 24-year-old named Daniel Halloran ran a red light on Route 3 at 6:52 in the morning in a company car registered to our fleet division. He hit a woman named Claire Carter. She died at the scene. A breath. Daniel Halloran is Gregory Halloran's son. Sophia didn't move. "He was doing 61 in a 40, Priya said. "It's on page 4. He'd been at a thing in Southie until 3 in the morning. He blew a .04 at the scene, which is legally nothing, which is why nobody went to jail. .04. Under the limit. He was 24 years old, driving our car at 61 miles an hour at 6:52 in the morning with alcohol in his blood." Sophia said, "And you're telling me nothing happened?" "I'm telling you what's on page 4. "What's on page 5? Priya didn't answer. "Priya, what's on page 5? "I didn't get to page 5, Priya said. "I told you. I got to page 1, and I stopped and I put it in a folder and I came up here." Sophia turned the page, then the next. Then she stopped, and she read something for 11 seconds without breathing, and then she put both hands flat on the desk on either side of the folder, like she was holding the desk down. "Sophia, there's a settlement." "Okay." "There's a settlement, and it's sealed, and there's a non-disclosure attached to it, and it's dated 11 weeks after she died." Sophia's voice was absolutely level. 11 weeks. He buried his wife, and 11 weeks later, somebody put a piece of paper in front of him. Did he sign it? Sophia turned the page, and she made a sound, small, involuntary, the same sound she'd made in the wind on Boylston Street. "He signed it," she said. "Sophia, he signed it on the 22nd of October 4 years ago, and the number is $410,000, and the terms say he can't discuss the incident, the vehicle, the operator, or the vehicle's registered owner in perpetuity in any forum with any party." She looked up, and her eyes were terrible. "He can't say my company's name. Priya. There is a man in Quincy who is legally not allowed to say my company's name out loud, and last night he sat across from me and made me laugh 3 times. Priya put her hand over her mouth. 410, Sophia said. "Do you know what our fleet policy carries? Do you know what the floor is on a wrongful death with a company vehicle and a red light and a blood alcohol reading? Sophia, 2.4 million. That's the floor. That's the number where our own lawyers start yawning." She stood up. "Somebody took a $4 million case and closed it for $410,000 and a gag order in 11 weeks, and I want to know who signed it." Sophia, turn to the last page. Sophia, please. Turn to the last page, Priya. Priya turned to the last page, and there was a signature block on it, and there were 3 names in it, and the third one was an authorization line, and the third one said S. Whitmore, CEO, approved as to form. Batch 41-C. Sophia looked at her own name. "Batch," she said. "It's a batch," Priya said quickly, and she was talking fast now, faster than Sophia had ever heard her talk. "Sophia, look, batch 41C. That's a bundle. That's 40-something settlements in one packet. That's the thing that comes up from legal every quarter, and you sign the cover sheet, and it means legal has reviewed these, and I'm not overriding legal. You've signed 100 of those. You've never read one. Nobody reads one. That's what a batch is. I signed it. You signed a cover sheet. I signed it, Priya." Sophia's voice cracked straight down the middle. Do you understand? I don't get to say I didn't read it. That's not a defense, that's a confession. A man's wife died under my company's wheels, and 11 weeks later, my signature went on the piece of paper that told him to shut up about it forever, and I was... She stopped, and her face did something awful. Where was I? What was I doing October 22nd, 4 years ago? What was I doing that day? Priya said nothing. Look it up. Sophia, don't... Look it up. Priya's hands were shaking on her tablet. She scrolled. She stopped. You were in Seoul, she said quietly. You closed the Hanjin acquisition. There's a photograph. I'm what? You're holding champagne. Sophia Whitmore turned around and walked to the window and stood there with her back to the room for a long, long time. That's the story, she said. Sophia, that's the story, Priya. That's Halloran's story. That's exactly the story, and it writes itself, and it doesn't even have to be a lie. Her voice was perfectly calm, and Priya had never been more frightened in her life. Whitmore Global killed a Navy officer's wife with a company car and paid $400,000 to make it disappear. The CEO signed off from a champagne party in Seoul. 4 years later, she was seen having a private dinner with the widower. That's not what happened. It doesn't matter what happened. Sophia turned around. That's the first thing I ever learned. It doesn't matter what happened. It matters what fits on a card, and that fits on a card, Priya, that fits on a napkin. Then Halloran can't use it, Priya said, because it's his son. And Sophia laughed. It was the worst sound Priya had ever heard come out of her. Oh, Priya, she said. Priya, no. Priya, sweetheart, think it through. His son was driving. His son was driving a Whitmore car on a Whitmore insurance policy, and it was Whitmore Legal that closed it in 11 weeks for $410,000 and a gag order. Who does that look like? She spread her hands. It looks like me. It looks like a company protecting itself. Nobody's going to read that document and see a father saving his kid. They're going to read it and see a corporation stepping on a widower's throat, and my name is on the last page. And Gregory Halloran's name isn't on it anywhere. The blood went out of Priya's face. He didn't sign anything, she said. He never signs anything. In 12 years, I've never once seen that man's signature on a piece of paper that could hurt him. Sophia's mouth twisted. He didn't bury it to protect Whitmore Global. He buried it to protect Daniel. And he did it through me. He used my legal department and my insurance carrier and my signature. And then he sat in my boardroom for 4 years and told anybody who'd listen that I'm emotionally unsuited to scale. Sophia, he's not counting names because he wants my chair, Sophia said. He's counting names because there's a bomb in my building with his son's name on the fuse, and the only way that bomb never goes off is if I'm gone before somebody finds it. She sat down on the edge of the desk, very suddenly, like something had been let go. He's been waiting for me to have a bad quarter, she said. For 4 years, he's been waiting. Priya came and sat down beside her on the desk, which she had never done in 6 years, and neither of them said anything for a while. Sophia, Priya said finally, don't. I have to ask it. Don't. Does he know? And there it was. Sophia had been circling it since page 1. She'd been circling it the way you circle a hole in the ice. No, she said. You're sure? He couldn't have. Sophia's hands were flat on the desk again. Priya, think about last night. Think about it operationally. If he knew who I was, then he sat in that restaurant for 97 minutes waiting for a shot, and then he took it by walking up to me and saying the one sentence in the English language that made me invite him to sit down. And then he made a rule that we don't say our last names. And then he made a rule that we don't say our jobs. And then he refused to let me pay, and then he gave me his coat, which he knew I'd have to bring back. She stopped. She heard it. She heard all of it out loud in her own voice, in the exact language she'd use on a diligence call, and she felt the floor tilt. Say the rest, Priya said quietly. No. Sophia. No, Because I know what it sounds like. I'm not an idiot. I know exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like an approach, Priya said. The word sat in the room. Approach. Trade word. Ugly word. The word they used for the ones who came at her sideways, the charity board. The mutual friend, the seat next to hers at the gala that got quietly bought 3 weeks in advance. He didn't know I'd be there, Sophia said. How do you know? Because I didn't know I'd be there until Tuesday. And who booked it? I booked it. Under a fake name. From a burner email. Priya, I've been doing this since I was 26. I don't... She stopped. Aurelio's. I picked Aurelio's. Why? Because Marcus suggested it. The radiator ticked. Marcus? Priya said. Don't. Marcus, who ran you, and then bailed by text at 8:52 on the same night at the same restaurant. Priya. Where a man happened to be sitting alone at a table for two for 97 minutes with a clear line of sight to the window. Stop! Sophia was on her feet. And then she was very still, and Priya watched her come apart in a way she had never seen. Not in the funding crash, not in the recall, not in the year everybody thought the company would die. She watched Sophia Whitmore stand in the middle of her own office with her arms wrapped around herself like a woman in the cold. He has a daughter, Sophia said. I know. He has a 7-year-old daughter who wrote him a note, purple marker. She spelled aloud wrong. She said... Sophia's voice went to pieces. She said, please don't come home alone again. And he carries it in his coat pocket. Sophia, he carries it in the coat, Priya. She looked up. It's in my car. The coat is in my car, and the note is in the pocket. And it's been in the pocket for 11 hours because he forgot. Because he gave me his coat on a sidewalk at 11:30 at night in 14 degrees, and he forgot his kid's note was in it. Priya put both hands over her face. Nobody plans that, Sophia said. Priya, nobody plans that. You don't hand a woman your daughter's handwriting as a tactic. Or, Priya said from behind her hands, it's the best one anybody's ever run on you. And Sophia Whitmore stood there in the middle of her office and hated her and loved her, and knew she was right to say it, and knew she'd never forgive her for saying it. Get out, she said. Sophia. Get out, Priya, please. Just... Her hand went up. An hour. Give me an hour. Priya got to the door. Sophia. What? Page 11, Priya said. You didn't get to page 11. And she left. Chattuapar. Sophia sat down. She turned to page 11. It was a photocopy of a handwritten letter stapled to the back of the settlement file, the way clerks staple things they don't know what else to do with. The handwriting was hard and square, and pressed too deep into the paper the way a man writes when he's holding a pen like it's a tool. To whoever reads this. My lawyer says if I don't sign this, I get nothing for 2 more years, and maybe nothing after that. He says the company has 40 lawyers, and I have him. He says I'd be doing it for the principal, and my daughter can't eat principal. So I'm signing it. I want it on the record that I asked for one thing that wasn't money. I asked to talk to the kid who was driving, not to yell at him. My wife would have hated that. I wanted to tell him he doesn't have to be dead too. 24 is not the end of a life. Your lawyers said no. They said contact was not available. I asked 3 times. So I'm signing your paper. I'm taking your money, and I'm putting it in an account for my daughter, and I'm not going to touch a dollar of it because I don't want it, because it's not mine, because it's hers, because it's what's left. But I want somebody at your company to read this one time and know that I asked to forgive somebody, and you wouldn't let me. Adrian M. Carter. Sophia read it 4 times. Then she put her head down on her own desk, on her own arms, in her own office on the 41st floor of a building with her name on it, and cried the way she had not cried since she was 19 years old. Dad. At 11:52, the phone on the desk buzzed. Not the office line. Her actual phone. And the screen said a number with no name on it, because she hadn't saved it, because saving it would have made it a thing. Sophia looked at it for 4 rings. She picked up on the 5th. Hello? So, Adrian said, I've got about 90 seconds before my daughter comes out of that school, and I want to state my business efficiently." Sophia laughed, wet, immediate, completely against her will. "Your business," she said. "My coat." "Your coat." "Sophie, I want you to understand something about my life," Adrian said. "I have two coats. I had two coats. I now have one coat, and the one I have is a green thing my sister-in-law bought me in 2016 that makes me look like a lawn. I wore it to pick up today. Another parent asked me if I was with the landscaping company, out loud, to my face, in front of my kid. Adrian, Maya confirmed it, he said. Maya said, and I quote, "He does look like the landscaping company." And then she went in the school. That's how she left it. That's what she said, and then she just walked into a building. Sophia was laughing and crying at the same time and pressing her hand hard against her mouth so he wouldn't hear it. "So," Adrian said, "the coat's gotten heavy. That's the call. That's the whole call." There was a silence. "Sophie." "I'm here." "You okay?" And Sophia Whitmore sat in a room with an accident report open on the desk in front of her, with her own signature on the last page of it, with a photocopy of a letter from a man who had asked to forgive the boy who killed his wife and been told no by her lawyers, and she said, "I've had a hard morning." "Okay." He didn't ask. He still didn't ask. "Adrian." "Yeah." "Why didn't you ask?" "About what?" "Last night, the car, the driver, the—" She caught it, went around it. "You didn't ask a single question, not one. Any other man on earth sees that and asks." There was a pause on the line, and she could hear kids in the background, and a bell, and a woman's voice calling somebody's name. "You want the real answer or the good one?" Adrian said. "Real." "Because I didn't want to know," he said. Sophia closed her eyes. "Sophie, I sat in that chair for 4 hours, and it was the first 4 hours since—" He stopped, started over. "It was the first time in 4 years and 7 months that I was just a guy at a table. Not the guy whose wife died. Not the guy people lower their voice around at the grocery store. Just a guy having a bad night, same as you." A breath. "And I figured the second I asked you a real question, you'd answer it, and then I'd have to answer one, and then it'd be over. So I didn't ask. That's not noble. That's cowardice, and I've had all night to look at it." "That's not cowardice." "It's the exact shape of it," Adrian said cheerfully. "Anyway, coat." Adrian. "Yeah." "What if I told you something and it changed everything?" The line went quiet. When he came back, his voice had dropped, and it had that thing in it, the thing she'd heard when Maya called, when the shoulders came down and something behind his eyes came on. "Then I'd want to know it before I liked you any more than I already do," he said. "Because I'm about 4 hours in, and I'm already past where I meant to be, and every day this goes on makes it worse to hear." Sophia's hand went flat on the desk. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tomorrow." "There's a park," she said. "By the water. Off Day Boulevard. You know it." There was a long, strange pause. "How do you know I know it?" Adrian said. And Sophia Whitmore, who had not opened the folder, who had sworn she wouldn't open the folder, who had opened it and read every page and cried on it, felt the floor go out from under her for the second time in one day. "You mentioned it," she said. "Last night." "Did I? You said there's a place you go when it gets to be too much." "Huh. A beat. I don't remember saying that." "You said it." "Okay," Adrian said slowly. "Okay. 10 o'clock. She's got school. I'll come alone. 10 o'clock. "Sophie." "Yeah." "Bring the coat," he said, "but that's not why I'm coming." And he hung up. Sophia set the phone down. She had lied. He hadn't mentioned the park. He'd never said a word about it. It was on page 7 of a file she had no right to open, in a paragraph about where the responding officer had located the next of kin at 8:14 that morning. Husband was found at Marine Park Day Boulevard per family. Declined transport. declined to leave the location for approximately 4 hours. He hadn't left. He had gotten the call at 7:20 in the morning, and he had gone to a park by the water and stood there for 4 hours, and somebody had written it down in a box on a form, and 4 years later, a woman had read it in an office in a tower with her name on it and used it to sound like she'd been listening. Sophia Whitmore put her hand over her mouth. "Oh God," she said to nobody. "Oh God, what have I done?" And then the office door opened without a knock. Sophia's head came up. Gregory Halloran stood in the doorway with his coat over his arm and his reading glasses in his hand. 71 years old, silver immaculate, smiling the way he'd smiled at her when she was 26, and he wrote the first check. "Sophia," he said warmly. "Priya said you were free." His eyes went to the desk, to the folder, to the 11 pages fanned open on it, and the crash report on top, and the name Halloran Daniel G. sitting right there in the light facing the door. Sophia didn't move. Halloran didn't move. Nobody moved for 4 full seconds. And then Gregory Halloran stepped into the office and closed the door behind him and said very gently, "Well, that's unfortunate." She didn't close the folder. That was the first thing Halloran noticed, and she watched him notice it. Any other executive in that building would have closed it, would have flipped the cover down and started talking about Zurich. Sophia left it open facing him and put one hand flat on the desk beside it. "Sit down, Greg." "I'd rather stand." "Sit down." He sat. He did it easily the way he did everything, and he laid his coat across his knees and folded his glasses and put them in his breast pocket and looked at her with an expression of mild fatherly patience. "Sophia," he said, "before you say anything, Daniel." He stopped. "That's his name," Sophia said. "Daniel. I'd like you to say it because you've had 4 years and 7 months, and I've had 4 hours, and I want to know if you can still say it out loud." Halloran's jaw moved very slightly. "Daniel," he said. "Good. Sophia, I don't know what you think you're 61 and a 40, .04, 6:52 in the morning in a company car." She said the numbers like she was reading a ledger. He was 24. He'd been out since 11 the night before. Whose car was he in, Greg? Because it says Fleet Services. Fleet Services doesn't issue cars to a 24-year-old who doesn't work here. Silence. "Whose car?" "Mine," Halloran said. "Say the rest." "He was staying with us. His mother was sick that year." "That's not an excuse. That's a fact. I'm giving you the facts." "He borrowed my car out of my own driveway at 4 in the morning without asking, and he drove home, and he ran a red light on Route 3. Halloran's voice was perfectly steady. "And he killed a woman named Claire Carter, and he has not had one good night's sleep since, and neither have I. And 11 weeks later, somebody closed it for $410,000. Yes. With a gag. Yes. With my signature on it. With your signature on the cover of a batch," Halloran said, "which you did not read, which nobody reads, which is the entire point of a batch. And if you want to be honest with yourself, Sophia, you'll admit that you've signed 100 of them, and you've never once, don't." Her voice came down like a blade. "Don't you dare hand me that. Priya already tried it, and she loves me." Halloran's mouth closed. "You used me," Sophia said. "I protected my son. You used my legal department, my carrier, my process, and my name, and then you sat in my boardroom for 4 years and told 9 people I'm emotionally unsuited to scale." She leaned forward. "How long, Greg? How long have you been waiting for a bad quarter?" And Gregory Halloran did something she had not expected. He laughed. Softly. Almost sadly. "Sophia," he said, "I have been waiting for this." "For what?" "For a Thursday night." He gestured vaguely at the folder. "For you to be found, that's all. That's the whole thing. 4 years, and I have gone to bed every single night knowing that at some point, somebody in this building would open that file, an auditor, a lawyer, a summer intern doing a records purge, and I have spent 4 years positioning for the day that happened, so that when it did, the story on the table would be, Sophia Whitmore signed it, and not Gregory Halloran's boy did it. And now? And now you found it yourself, he said, which is worse for me than if anyone else had, and I want you to understand that I know that, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending otherwise. Sophia sat back. You're not here to threaten me, she said slowly. No. You're here to deal. I'm here to count, Halloran said. That's all I've ever been. I'm an old man with a legal pad, and I'd like to lay out the count for you honestly one time, and then I'll go home. He held up one finger. 1. If this comes out and the story is the company buried it, the company survives. Stock takes 12%, ugly quarter. 2 years of think pieces. Whitmore Global is fine. And you're gone. I'm gone, and my son is on the front page of the Globe at 28 years old, Halloran said, and he doesn't survive it. Sophia, look at me. He doesn't survive it. He's been in a room since he was 24. 2 attempts. The second one was August. Sophia's stomach turned over. Greg, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm giving you the count. A second finger. 2. If this comes out and the story is the CEO signed it from a champagne party in Seoul, you're gone by Christmas. You know that better than I do. And you stay. And I stay, and Daniel stays out of it, and I go on hating myself in private, which I've had a great deal of practice at. Sophia stared at him. You've had a third one ready for 4 years, she said. Haven't you? You didn't come up here to give me 2. Halloran was quiet for a moment. 3, he said. Nobody ever opens the file. It's open, Greg. It's open, it's on my desk. It's a photocopy, Halloran said. Priya pulled it at 4 in the morning off a records terminal in a basement using a credential that flags. That's a photocopy of a sealed settlement that a sitting officer accessed outside of a legal hold, which, Sophia, I don't have to do anything to that document. I don't have to bury it. I just have to point at how you got it. The room went very cold. You'd end Priya, Sophia said. I'd end whoever pulled it. She's 29 years old. She's 29 years old, and she committed a fireable act at 4 in the morning because she was afraid for you, Halloran said. And if that document ever walks out of this building, that's the first fact in the story, and you know it is, and I take no pleasure in it whatsoever. Sophia put her hands over her face. For 6 seconds, she was nothing at all. Then she took them down. There's a 4th, she said. There isn't. There is. Her voice was hoarse. Turn to page 11, Sophia. Turn to page 11, Greg. And for the first time in 12 years, Gregory Halloran hesitated. I've read page 11, he said. When? October 22nd, 4 years ago. About 6 hours before your name went on the cover of Batch 41C. He was looking at the carpet. Our counsel sent it to me as a courtesy. She said, quote, the claimant has attached a personal statement. We've advised him it has no legal effect. Do you want us to include it in the file or discard it? And you said? I said include it. Why? Halloran looked up, and for 1 second there was nothing in his face at all. No strategy, no glasses, no legal pad. Nothing but a 71-year-old man who had been carrying something up a hill for 4 years. Because he asked somebody to read it, he said. One time. That was the whole request. And I couldn't make it stop being true, and I couldn't answer it, and I couldn't let my son see it, so I did the only thing I could do. You filed it. I filed it. Sophia stood up. He asked to forgive him, she said. Greg, he asked to sit in a room with your son and tell him 24 is not the end of a life, and your lawyers wrote back not available. I know what they wrote. You could have said yes. Her voice broke wide open. You could have picked up a phone. You could have driven to Quincy and said what Sophia. And Halloran was on his feet too. And it was the first time she had ever heard him raise his voice, and it went through her like a wire. What do I say? Hello. I'm the man whose son killed your wife. My boy's in a facility. Would you mind terribly making him feel better about it? Do you understand what you're describing? You're describing me asking a widower to do labor for me. He offered He was 11 weeks out, Halloran roared. The room rang. He was 11 weeks out, Halloran said again, quieter, shaking. He'd buried her in October. He had a 3-year-old. A man in that condition will offer you anything. He'll offer you his own hands because it's the only thing left he can control. And if I'd taken it, if I'd walked in there and let that man be kind to my son at 11 weeks. He stopped. His hand went out and found the back of the chair. That's not forgiveness. That's harvesting. Sophia stood absolutely still. So you said no, she said. I said no. To protect him. To protect both of them, and I got it wrong, Halloran said. I've known I got it wrong for 4 years. I got it wrong at $410,000, and I got it wrong at not available, and I have never once, not once, been able to think of what right would have looked like. He straightened his coat over his arm with both hands, and they weren't steady. That's my count, Sophia. That's all of it. There's no fourth. He went to the door. Greg? He stopped. 9 names, Sophia said. You've called 9 board members in 6 days. If you've been waiting 4 years for the file to surface, why'd you start calling last week? Halloran didn't turn around. Greg. Because a man named Marcus Reyes called me 11 days ago, Halloran said. Sophia's hand found the desk. He wanted to know if I could confirm something for him, Halloran said. He said he was doing diligence on a potential associate. He said he'd been talking to a woman for a week and a half, and something about her didn't add up, and his guy had pulled a name, and the name was yours. And he asked me very politely off the record, one gentleman to another, whether it was true that Whitmore Global had ever settled a fatality out of its fleet division. The room tilted. He knows, Sophia whispered. He knows there's a shape, Halloran said. He doesn't know what's in it. He was fishing. I told him nothing, and I hung up, and then I went and got my legal pad, because Sophia, when a man you've never met calls you asking about a 4-year-old accident, the clock isn't 4 years anymore. The clock is weeks. He put his hand on the door. I started counting last Friday, he said, because somebody else started looking. And he left. Priya found her 20 minutes later, sitting on the floor with her back against the desk. Sophia, sit down. I'll stand. Priya, sit down on the floor with me, please, because if you stand up there looking at me, I'm going to start giving orders, and I don't have any. Priya sat down on the floor. They stayed there for a while. He's not the villain, Sophia said. What? Halloran, he's not the villain. He's a father. She laughed, wrecked. That's the joke. That's the whole joke, Priya. I've been in a knife fight with a man for 4 years, and it turns out he's just a guy trying to keep his kid alive, and I'm... She stopped. You're what? Priya said. I'm the company, Sophia said. I'm the thing that said not available. Priya put her head back against the desk. Sophia, you signed a cover sheet. Priya, I'm going to say this one time, and then I never want to hear the cover sheet again. Sophia turned her head. 22,000 people work here because I told them we'd be different. That's the pitch. That's what I say at every all hands. We don't do what they do. And it turns out that while I was in Seoul holding champagne, my company put a piece of paper in front of a man 11 weeks after his wife's funeral and told him he could never say our name. And he signed it because he had a 3-year-old. And then he wrote us a letter asking to forgive the boy who did it. And we filed it. Her voice was very quiet. The cover sheet is not the point, Priya. The cover sheet is how it happened. That's what a system is. Nobody has to be evil. Somebody just has to not read page 11. Priya wiped her face with the back of her hand. What do we do? She said. We don't do anything. Sophia got up. You're going to go home, right now. You're going to go home, and you are never going to touch a records terminal again as long as you live. And if anybody ever asks you where that folder came from, you're going to say, I don't know, and you're going to keep saying it. Sophia, Halloran can burn you. Let him. He can burn you, Priya. He told me exactly how, and he wasn't threatening me. He was... She shook her head. He was reporting the weather. Priya stood up. "Where are you going?" she said. Sophia was already picking up the coat from the back of the chair. "Day Boulevard," she said. 10 o'clock tomorrow. Sophia, no. No, listen to me. You cannot tell him. Sophia stopped. "Say that again," she said. "You can't tell him." Priya's hands were up. "Not tomorrow. Sophia, the second he knows, he's got two choices, and both of them end you. He calls a lawyer, that's 4 years of litigation and your face on every screen in America. Or he doesn't, and he keeps quiet for you, and then Marcus Reyes finds it in 3 weeks, and the story is the CEO located the widower and personally kept him quiet." Her voice cracked. "There's no version where you tell him and survive it. Give me a week. Let me find a way to—" Priya. 1 week. He carried his kid's note in that coat pocket for 11 hours and didn't know, Sophia said. "Do you understand what that means? It means he never checked. It means when he gave it to me, he wasn't thinking. Nobody's ever not thinking around me. Not in 11 years. That's not an argument." "It's the only one I've got left," Sophia said, and put on his coat and walked out. Keck. He was standing at the seawall at 9:52 with his back to the parking lot in a green jacket that did in fact make him look like a lawn. She got out of the car 200 feet away and told Ray to stay. "Ma'am." "Stay, Ray." She walked the 200 feet. It was the longest walk of her life, and she had walked into a bankruptcy court at 29 and a Senate hearing at 33. He turned around when she was about 30 feet out, and he smiled, and it went straight through her like a bullet. "There it is," he said. "What?" "The coat." He gestured at her. "I'd know it anywhere. Been looking for it since Thursday." "Adrian? That jacket's a situation, isn't it?" he said, plucking at the green sleeve. "You're being very brave about it. Maya wasn't brave about it. Maya was vicious." Sophia stopped 6 feet away and couldn't say anything at all. Adrian's smile faded. "Sophie," he said, "don't call me that." "Okay. Don't call me that because it isn't—" Her hands were shaking so hard she put them in his pockets and then felt the note in the left one folded 4 times wrong. One corner sticking out and made a sound like she'd been hit. Adrian took 1 step forward. "Hey," he said. "Hey. Whatever it is, stop being kind to me." It came out of her like a scream. It came out over the water and the wind and 140 feet of empty seawall. Adrian stopped. And then very quietly he said, "Okay, then say it." Sophia Whitmore took her hands out of his pockets. "My name is Sophia Whitmore," she said. Nothing happened in his face. "I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Whitmore Global Technologies. We're a $51 billion company. I've run it for 11 years. That's who I am. That's who was sitting at that table." Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then Sophia understood with a horror that opened under her like a floor that he didn't know the name. He didn't know it. It meant nothing to him. It was a word. "You're—" Adrian's eyebrows went up. He almost laughed. "Sophie, that's the thing. That's what your face has been doing since Thursday. You're rich." He shook his head, and there was so much relief in it that she had to close her eyes. "Sophie, I know. I knew Thursday. You had a car and a driver and a coat with no job, and you tipped Emilio in a way that made him look at you funny. I'm not stupid. I'm just polite." "Adrian, I don't care. Is that what you thought? I don't care? I told you at the table I meant it. I don't—" "Adrian, care about a company. The car that killed your wife was mine." The wind took it, and then it stopped, and there was nothing but water. Adrian Carter stood absolutely still. "What?" he said. "Vehicle 2. Sophia's voice was destroyed. "Route 3, 6:52 in the morning. Registered owner Whitmore Global Technologies Fleet Services Division. That was my car. That was my company's car." "What?" The boy driving it was Daniel Halloran. He was 24. His father sits on my board. She made herself keep going. She made herself. 11 weeks later, my legal department put a settlement in front of you for $410,000 with a non-disclosure attached, and you signed it on October 22nd, and my name is on the last page of it. S. Whitmore. Approved as to form. Adrian didn't move. And you wrote a letter, Sophia said. Page 11. You asked to talk to him. You asked to tell him 24 is not the end of a life. And my lawyers wrote back, not available, and then they filed it, and I was in Seoul, and I have a photograph, and I'm holding champagne. The water went in and out. I found it yesterday morning, Sophia said, 12 hours after you gave me your coat. I've known for one day. I would have told you on the phone, but I couldn't do it to you over a phone, and I didn't tell you Thursday, because Thursday I didn't know, and I am telling you now, standing here, because you are the only person in 11 years who ever looked at me and saw a person, and I would rather you hate me than have it be a lie. She stopped. She was out of everything. Adrian hadn't moved once. Say something, she said. He didn't. Adrian, say something. Yell at me, please, please just... How'd you know about the park? He said. Sophia's mouth opened. Oh, God. Adrian, on the phone. Yesterday. You said the park by the water, and I said, how do you know I know it? And you said you mentioned it. He turned his head and looked at her for the first time, and there was nothing in his eyes at all. I didn't mention it, Sophie. I've never told anyone about this place. Not Denise, not my kid. The water went in and out. It's in the file, Sophia said. What is? Husband was located at Marine Park Day Boulevard per family. Declined transport. Declined to leave the location for approximately 4 hours. Her voice was barely there. Page 7. A responding officer wrote it in a box at 8:14 in the morning 4 years ago. And I read it yesterday, and I used it on the phone to sound like I'd been listening to you. And it is the single worst thing I have ever done in my life. And Adrian Carter finally moved. He sat down, right there on the seawall, like his legs had quit, and he put his elbows on his knees and his hands over the back of his head, and Sophia stood behind him with her hands out and nothing to put them on. 4 hours, he said. Adrian. They wrote that down. His voice was muffled. Somebody wrote that down. I stood here and I couldn't feel my hands and I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life, and there was a guy and he was writing it in a box. I'm sorry. And a woman read it in an office, Adrian said, 4 years later, and used it to find me. He put his head down. I didn't find you, Sophia said. Adrian, I swear to God, I didn't find you. I didn't know I sat down at that table because I got stood up by a man who ran my name. Adrian went very still. Say that again, he said. What? He lifted his head. The man who stood you up, Adrian said slowly. Thursday. You said he had somebody run you. What was his name? Adrian, that doesn't... What was his name? Sophie. Marcus, Sophia said. Marcus Reyes. And Adrian Carter stood up off that seawall so fast she stumbled backward. His whole face had changed. Everything had changed. And for the first time since the chair went over on Thursday night, Sophia Whitmore was looking at the man from the deployments flat, cold, absolutely still, and it terrified her. Sophie, he said. Where'd you meet him? An app. Adrian, it doesn't. Who suggested Aurelio's? He did, but... Who suggested the night? He. Adrian, stop. Who suggested the night? He did. And Adrian looked out at the water, and he laughed once, and there was nothing in it at all. Marcus Reyes, he said, was the claims adjuster on my wife's file. The words hung there over the water for about 4 seconds, and then Sophia heard them. What? She said. Marcus Reyes. Adrian was still looking out at the harbor. Whitmore Global Claims, 4 years ago. He's the man who called my house 11 days after the funeral and asked if it was a good time. That's not Adrian, that's not possible. He drove out to Quincy twice. Adrian's voice was flat and even and completely dead, and that was the part that frightened her, that there was no anger in it at all. Sat at my kitchen table, ate a cookie my sister-in-law made, told me, and I remember this. Sophie, I remember it because I was in a condition where I remembered everything and nothing. He told me, Mr. Carter, I want you to think of me as being on your side of the table. Oh my God. And I did. Now he turned around. I did. For about 9 weeks, I thought there was a man at that company who was on my side. He called me every Tuesday. He asked how Maya was. He remembered her name, Sophie. He'd say, "How's Maya like a..." He stopped. And then, Sophia said, and then, on a Tuesday in October, he came out with a folder, and he said, Adrian, I fought for you as hard as I could, and this is where it landed, and I'm going to be honest with you because I've come to care about your family. You're not going to do better, and if you push, they'll go 2 more years, and your daughter's going to grow up inside a lawsuit. Adrian's mouth twisted, and I signed it at my kitchen table, and he shook my hand, and he said he was sorry, and I believed him. Sophia put her hand over her mouth. He handled it, she said. He was the adjuster. He closed it. He knows every page. He knows page 11. Sophie. He knows about Daniel? Sophie. She stopped. Adrian took 1 step toward her. Look at me, he said. You met a man on an app 11 days ago. He ran you. He picked the restaurant. He picked the night. He picked the time. A beat. And then he didn't show. Yes. And who's the one guy in the state of Massachusetts who knows what a table with Sophia Whitmore on one side and Adrian Carter on the other side is worth? The wind came off the water. Sophia Whitmore stood on the seawall at Marine Park and felt the entire last 4 days turn over and show her its other face. He wasn't standing me up, she said. No. He was Adrian. He was seating me. He put you in that room, Adrian said, and he put me in that room and he sat back and waited for one of us to do something. But you walked over. That was you. That was your... He didn't need me to walk over. Adrian's voice was terrible in its calm. Sophie, think. He didn't need us to talk. He needed us in the same photograph. 2 people, 1 room, 97 minutes, time-stamped. The rest is a caption. He shook his head. The chair was a bonus. I gave him a bonus. Sophia turned around and looked at the parking lot. At the black Escalade with Ray sitting in it. At the seawall, and the empty stretch of grass, and the road, and the 200 feet of open ground she'd made him watch her walk across. Adrian, she said quietly, how long have we been standing here? Adrian went very still. Then he said, Don't turn your head. Adrian, don't turn your head. White sedan, far end of the lot past the light pole. Been there since before you pulled in. He hadn't looked. He hadn't moved his eyes off her face. I made it when I got here. Figured it was a guy eating lunch. It's 10 in the morning. Sophia's blood went to ice. How do you know it's... Because he's been sitting in it for 40 minutes, and he hasn't gotten out, and he hasn't started it. Adrian said. And I spent 11 years learning exactly one useful thing on this earth, and that's what a man looks like when he's watching instead of waiting. And then, Adrian Carter did the last thing on God's green earth Sophia Whitmore expected. He smiled, and he stepped in, and he put his hand on her elbow gently, the way you'd steady somebody on ice, and he turned her so her back was to the parking lot. Adrian, what are you... Give him the picture, Adrian said. What? He wants 2 people in a photograph. He was still smiling, and his voice was low and fast and warm and absolutely lethal. Sophie, listen to me. We've got about 4 seconds to decide whether this is the worst day of your life or the best one, and I'm telling you as a man who has been ambushed professionally, you don't get to pick the ground. You just get to pick what you're doing when they take the shot. He'll sell it. He'll sell it anyway. He's got Thursday. He's got a restaurant with 12 staff and a maitre d' named Julian who's been bought before. Adrian's hand tightened on her elbow. The picture's gone, Sophie. That's over. That happened Thursday at 9:15. The only thing left in the world that we still own is the caption. Sophia stared at him. You're not—" Her voice cracked. "Adrian, I just told you my company killed your wife. I just told you I read a file about the worst morning of your life and used it to sound charming on the phone. You should be screaming at me." "Oh, I'm going to," Adrian said. "Sophie, I'm going to scream at you for about a year. I'm going to be unbearable, but not in front of a man in a white sedan getting paid for it." His jaw set. He doesn't get that. He does not get to have that. And Sophia Whitmore, who had spent 11 years learning to make the correct decision in 4 seconds, looked at a Navy officer in a green jacket and made the first one that wasn't correct at all. "What do you want me to do?" she said. "Stand there," Adrian said, "and let me say a true thing at full volume." He let go of her elbow. He stepped back, and he turned and faced the parking lot, and he raised his voice so it carried the whole 200 feet across the grass, over the wind, straight at a white sedan, with a man behind the wheel and a long lens on the seat beside him. "Marcus, it's Adrian Carter, come say hello." Sophia's whole body jerked. Nothing happened. "Marcus." Adrian's voice rolled out over that park like something from a flight deck. "You drove to my house twice, you ate a cookie at my table. Come say hello to me in a park." The sedan door opened. "Adrian," Sophia breathed. "What are you doing?" "Ruining the photograph," Adrian said pleasantly without turning his head. "Can't sell a picture of 2 people talking if there's a third guy standing in it." Marcus Reyes came across that grass slowly, and he came with his hands out of his pockets, and he was smiling a genuinely rueful, genuinely charming, absolutely devastated smile, and Sophia understood immediately why she'd laughed twice in 11 days at a man she'd never met. "Adrian," Marcus said. "Hey, look. Hey, Marcus. This isn't okay, okay." Marcus stopped 10 feet out and put his hands up. "Sophia. Hi. I owe you an apology and I'm going to give you one, but I want to do it in the right order." "You were her adjuster," Sophia said. "Yes. You ran me on an app and you picked the restaurant and you picked the night." "Yes. You sat in my dinner." "Sophia." And Marcus Reyes looked her dead in the eye. "I got fired 11 months ago. Restructuring. 14 years and a woman I'd never met read my name off a list in a conference room. I've got a kid at BU and a mortgage in Medford, and I have applied for 216 jobs." His voice didn't waver. "And I've been sitting on a file for 4 years that is worth more money than I will earn for the rest of my life." "So you sold it." "I haven't sold it." Something desperate came into his face. That's what I'm telling you. Sophia, I could have walked into the Globe 11 months ago. I could have walked in 4 years ago. I didn't. Because it's not a story. It's a man. It's a man with a kid. And I sat at his kitchen table, and I liked him." "You liked him," Adrian said. "Adrian, you liked me so much, you closed my wife for $410,000, Adrian said, "and told me you were on my side of the table." Marcus Reyes stopped, and then he said quietly, "I was." "Don't." "Adrian, I fought that number for 9 weeks. His voice broke right down the middle in a way that was either the truth or the finest work of a lifetime. "I sent 4 memos. I wrote a reserve recommendation at $2.4 million, and it came back rewritten in 1 day, with a note that said, 'Revised to reflect comparative fault.' And there was no comparative fault. Your wife had a green light." "Who rewrote it?" Sophia said. "Outside counsel." "Who?" "I don't know who." Marcus turned on her. "That's the point, Sophia. Nobody's name is on it. It came down through a firm, and the firm doesn't have a name on it either. It has a matter number, and the matter number goes to batch 41C, and the batch goes to you, and you were in Seoul." "I know where I was." "And I was a 38-year-old adjuster in Braintree," Marcus said. "And I did exactly what everybody in that building does, which is, I decided that if I pushed any harder, I'd be the guy who got walked out, and I sat in Adrian's kitchen, and I told him it was the best I could do." He was breathing hard. "And I was lying. It wasn't the best I could do. It was the best I was willing to do. And 11 months later, a woman read my name off a list anyway." Nobody said anything. The water went in and out. So, Here's your apology, Sophia, Marcus said. I ran your name because a friend of mine at Aurelio's told me you'd booked a two-top under Sophie Witt, and I recognized the name from a fleet claim, and I sat up all night thinking about a document in a box in my garage. And then I put myself on an app you use, and I made you laugh twice, and I picked the restaurant, and I picked the night. He swallowed. And I told Adrian's grief counselor's office that there was an unclaimed disbursement he needed to discuss with an advisor over dinner at Aurelio's at 8. Adrian's head came up very slowly. Denise, he said. Your sister-in-law got a call from a woman named Erin who works at Mass General and is a real person and did get set up with you and did panic and did bail, Marcus said. Which Adrian, I swear on my daughter I did not arrange. I put you both in the building. That's all I did. The rest of it was you. You put me in a building with the woman who signed my wife's gag order. I put you in a building with a woman who didn't know, Marcus said. And I sat in that parking lot Thursday night with a camera on the seat, and I waited for one of you to do something ugly, so I'd have a price. His face came apart. And then you got up and gave her your coat. Sophia's hand went to her mouth. You gave her your coat, Marcus said again. In February on Boylston Street at 11:30 at night, and I've been sitting in a car for 4 days trying to figure out how to sell that, and there's no market for it, Adrian. There's nobody in America who wants to buy a picture of a man giving a woman his coat. He wiped his face with the heel of his hand. So I came here to give it back, he said. Give what back? Marcus Reyes reached into his jacket, and Adrian moved half a step in front of Sophia, without appearing to move at all, and what came out was not a camera. It was a flash drive. Everything, Marcus said. The reserve memos, my 4 emails, the rewrite with the timestamp, the internal chain where somebody at a firm with no name told a 38-year-old in Braintree to make a widower's file smaller. He held it out flat on his palm. It's got my name all over it. It's got me in it saying yes. That's mine. I'm not asking you to leave it out. Nobody took it. Why? Sophia said. Because I ran him too, Marcus said. Adrian went still. 4 years ago at the kitchen table, standard, and you know what came back? Marcus's voice was raw. Nothing. Nothing at all. Man's got no debts, no claims, no lawyers, and a $410,000 disbursement that landed in October 4 years ago and has never been touched. Not a dollar. Not once. It's just sitting there in a custodial account with a 7-year-old's name on it gaining 3%. He put the drive on top of the seawall and stepped back from it. I've applied for 216 jobs, Marcus said, and I have spent 4 years being the guy who did what he was told. And I sat in that parking lot on Thursday and watched a man who was told the same thing I was told. Take it, don't fight it, that's the world. And he took it. And then he didn't spend a dime of it because it wasn't his. His voice went to nothing. And I thought one of us here is a coward, and it isn't him. He turned to go. Marcus, Adrian said. He stopped. Page 11, Adrian said. Marcus's shoulders came up like he'd been hit. You read it, Adrian said. I typed it, Marcus said without turning around. You gave it to me in longhand at your kitchen table. And you asked me to make sure somebody saw it, and I photocopied it, and I put it in the file, and I put the original in a box in my garage, and I've read it about 400 times. He looked back once. 24 is not the end of a life. Mr. Carter, I have never in 14 years put a sentence like that into a claims file. I didn't know where it went. And he walked back across the grass and got in his car and drove away. They stood there for a long time. Adrian, Sophia said finally. Yeah. I have to tell you something else, and it's the last one, and it's the worst one. Okay. The father. She wrapped her arms around herself. Gregory Halloran. He's been on my board 12 years. He wrote my first check. He's 71. She made herself say it. His son has been in a facility since he was 24. 2 attempts. The second one was August. Adrian didn't say anything. He didn't bury it to protect the company, Sophia said. He buried it to protect Daniel. And he sat in my office yesterday, and he told me the Count and Adrian the Count is real. If this comes out, I'm gone by Christmas, and Priya goes with me, and Daniel Halloran is on the front page of the Globe at 28, and his father does not think he survives it. And if it doesn't come out, then I keep my company, Sophia said, and page 11 stays in a drawer forever, and a man in Quincy is legally not allowed to say my name out loud until he dies. Adrian looked at the water. That's the whole board, he said. That's the whole board. Okay. He nodded slowly. Then I've got a question, and I want you to answer it like it's Thursday, not like it's this, like it's the table. Ask it. What's the last thing you did that you weren't good at? Sophia laughed, and the laugh had glass in it. Adrian, answer it. This, she said. This, right now, standing here. I have been doing this terribly for 6 minutes, and I would rather be in a deposition. Good, Adrian said. Then we're both bad at it. That's a start. He turned to face her. Sophia, Miss Whitmore. He said it without a single ounce of cruelty in it, and it hurt worse than if he'd screamed. I'm going to tell you what I want, and then you're going to tell me if it's possible, and if it isn't, I'm going to walk to my truck, and we're never going to see each other again, and I'll still say you were the best 4 hours I've had in 4 years and 7 months. That's not a threat. That's just how it is. Okay? I don't want your money. I know. I don't want your company. I don't want a lawsuit. I don't want that boy's name in the paper. Sophie, look at me. I don't want Daniel Halloran's name in the paper. I've had 4 years to want that, and I've never wanted it for a single day. Sophia's eyes closed. Then what do you want? She said. And Adrian Carter said, I want the meeting. Sophia opened her eyes. I asked for one thing 4 years ago, and I asked 3 times, and your lawyers wrote not available on a piece of paper. Adrian said, and his voice finally cracked. That's it, Sophie. That's the whole thing. I don't want $4 million. I want a room and a chair and that kid in 45 minutes. Adrian, I want to tell him what my wife would have said, Adrian said. Because she'd have said it, Sophie. She'd have gone to that hospital herself. She'd have been in that room in 24 hours. I'm not a better person than that. I'm a worse one. I've had 4 years to go looking, and I didn't, because I was told not available, and I let a piece of paper decide it for me, and I have been carrying that around, and it's heavier than the rest of it combined. Sophia was crying, and she didn't bother to stop. That's what you want, she said. That's what I want. He's not Adrian. He might not be able to. Then he says no, Adrian said. Then he says no. Not a lawyer. Not a box on a form. Him. He gets to say it himself, and then I'll go home and I'll be done. And Sophia Whitmore stood in the wind at Marine Park and understood that she was standing in front of a door and that she had spent 11 years bricking up every door she'd ever seen, and that this one, for the first time in her life, opened from her side. Okay, she said. Sophie. Okay. She wiped her face with both hands. Okay. Then here's what happens. And you're not going to like all of it. Go. I void the settlement. Adrian's head came up. Not the money's Maya's. It's hers. It stays. The gag. I void it. Unilaterally. Today. Sophia's voice was steadying, gathering, and Adrian watched something come on behind her eyes that he'd never seen at a dinner table. It's my company. It's my carrier. It's my signature on the last page, and I can take it off. There's no board vote on releasing a claimant from an NDA. Legal will scream. Let them. That gives Halloran his story. No, Sophia said. That gives Halloran his story if somebody else tells it. And she smiled, and it was the most frightening thing Adrian had ever seen on a human face. So, I'm going to tell it first. Sophie. Tuesday there's a board meeting on the 12th, and Halloran's got 9 names, she said. So I'm going to move it up. I'm going to call an open session, and I'm going to put batch 41C on the screen, and I'm going to read page 11 out loud into the minutes in front of every director we have, and then I'm going to say my signature is on this. I didn't read it. That's not a defense, that's a confession, and here's what we're doing about it. They'll fire you. They might? Sophia. Adrian, I said it out loud to Priya yesterday, and I've been chewing on it for 24 hours. She stepped closer. Nobody had to be evil. That's the whole thing. Nobody in my company woke up and decided to hurt you. Somebody just didn't read page 11, and then somebody didn't read it, and then a woman in Seoul signed a cover sheet. That's not an accident. That's a machine, and I built it, and I have 22,000 people who think we're different because I told them we were. Her voice broke. If I keep my job by keeping your wife in a drawer, then I'm not the person you sat down with on Thursday. I'm just the person who owns the drawer. Adrian was staring at her. And Daniel, he said. Daniel's name doesn't go in the minutes, Sophia said. It's not relevant. What's relevant is that our fleet division killed a woman, and our legal department closed it for 11 cents on the dollar and buried a request for contact. The driver is a 24-year-old. Full stop. If Greg wants to put his son's name in it, that's Greg's to do. He'll come after Priya. He'll try. Sophie. He'll try, Sophia said. And I'm going to be standing in front of her when he does, because that's what the job is, Adrian. I forgot. For 11 years, I thought the job was being the smartest person in the room, and it turns out the job is being the one who stands in front. She stopped. She was shaking. Say something, she said. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he bent down, picked up the flash drive off the seawall, turned it over in his fingers once, and held it out. You'll need this, he said. And Sophia Whitmore took it. The board met on a Tuesday. It ran 4 hours and 11 minutes. Sophia Whitmore put a crash report on a screen in front of 12 directors and read a handwritten letter into the minutes in a voice that did not break once. And then she said the sentence she'd rehearsed exactly one time in a car out loud, with a coat that smelled like cedar in her lap. My name is on the last page. I didn't read it. That's not a defense. Ellsworth abstained. Gregory Halloran voted to retain her. She'd known he would. Not out of loyalty, she'd stopped believing in that. She'd known because she'd sat down in his office on Monday afternoon and put one page in front of him, page 11, and said, Greg, this goes in the minutes on Tuesday, and your son's name does not. That's not a trade. I'm not asking for anything. I'm telling you what's going to happen so you can decide where you want to be standing. And Gregory Halloran had read a letter he'd read once before 4 years ago. 6 hours before, a woman's name went on a cover sheet in Seoul, and he had taken off his glasses and he had not put them back on for a long time. He asked to talk to Daniel, Halloran said. Yes. He still wants to. Yes. And Gregory Halloran had put his hand over his eyes at 71 years old in his own office and said, Oh God, Sophia, I've had that in a drawer for 4 years and my boy could have... And he hadn't finished it and he hadn't needed to. The vote was 8-3, 1 abstention. The stock took 11%. By Friday, 406 former claimants had contacted a hotline that had not existed on Monday. And by the following spring, a thing the press insisted on calling the Whitmore Review had voided 211 non-disclosure agreements across 19 years and reopened 41 settlements, and the number Whitmore Global paid out over the next 4 years was large enough that 2 analysts publicly called it an act of corporate self-harm. Sophia Whitmore read both of those pieces. She had them framed. Priya hung them in the hall outside her office at eye level, where everybody walking in had to pass them. The room was on the 3rd floor of a facility in Belmont, and it had 4 chairs in it, and Adrian only needed 2. He got there 20 minutes early. He'd been up since 4. Daniel Halloran came in at 10 past 10, and he was 28 years old, and he looked about 50. He stopped in the doorway, and he couldn't come in. Mr. Carter. Adrian. I can't. The kid's hands were going. They said I could leave. They said if I at any point I can just... You can leave, Adrian said. Absolutely. Door's right there. I'm not going to say a word about it. Daniel Halloran stood in the doorway for 11 seconds. Then he came in and sat down. And Adrian Carter, 38 years old, who had stood at a seawall for 4 hours on a morning in October and hadn't been able to feel his hands, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and said, Her name was Claire. She'd have been 39 last March. She did the Sunday crossword in pen, which I always thought was showing off, and I never told her that, and I regret it. He waited. Do you want to know about her, or do you want to talk about the road? Either one's fine. It's your 45 minutes. I've been waiting 4 years to give them to you. Daniel Halloran put his face in his hands and made a sound that Adrian had made in a park once alone with nobody writing it in a box. It went 90 minutes. At the end of it, at the door, the kid said, I don't know how to, Mr. Carter. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. You're not supposed to do anything with it. But why? Because 24 is not the end of a life, Adrian said. That's all. That's the whole message. I wrote it down 4 years ago, and I've been trying to deliver it ever since, and now it's delivered and it's yours and I'm going home. He put his hand out. Do something with the rest of it, he said. That's not a debt. Nobody's collecting. But do something. Ben. Maya's science fair was the following Thursday at 6:30, and Sophia Whitmore was in the front row at 6:05. Not because it worked out. Because Zurich was at 4 a.m., and she'd taken it at 4 a.m., and Kessler had signed on a Tuesday in a room in Switzerland, while a woman in Boston sat in a car outside an elementary school with a coat on her lap, and Priya had said, Sophia, you don't have to be there, it's a science fair. And Sophia had said, Priya, that's the entire point. Maya's project was about sharks. It was, everyone agreed, unreasonably good. Tier 1, Maya explained to the crowd with a laser pointer she was not authorized to have. Uncontested, 3 years running. Now some people say the dolphin, somebody's father laughed. Maya turned and looked at him. The dolphin, she said, is doing a bit. Sophia Whitmore laughed so hard she had to put her hand over her mouth, and a 7-year-old on a stage in a gymnasium found her in the front row and grinned at her and Adrian Carter standing at the back, because there hadn't been 2 seats together, and he'd given his to the woman, watched a billionaire cry at a science fair over a shark. It took 1.5 years. There was no proposal in the park. That's not what happened. What happened was that on a Saturday in June, Adrian took her out to the edge of the yard in Quincy, where he'd been building something for 2 years, badly on weekends, with hands that were built to carry things, and there was a small wooden structure standing there in the grass with a crooked door. You built this, Sophia said. I built this. It's... She walked around it. Adrian, the door. The door's a situation I know. It's diamond-shaped. It's a rhombus, and it was on purpose, and if you ask Maya, she'll back me up. She will not. She absolutely will not, Adrian admitted. She's written it in the notes column. Sophia put her hand on the frame. 2 years. Weekends. A man with a truck with 240,000 miles on it, cutting boards in a yard in Quincy, 40 minutes at a time whenever a 7-year-old was asleep. How long? She said. 2 years. For this. Everything important takes time, Adrian said. And Sophia Whitmore, who had built $51 billion, who had put up towers on 3 continents, who had once landed a hostile acquisition in 91 days, stood in a backyard in Quincy, with her hand on a crooked doorframe, and understood that she had spent her entire life building things fast so that nobody could ever ask her to build one slow. Adrian? Yeah. There's a girl in there watching us through the window. There's been a girl in there watching us for 20 minutes, Adrian said. She's got a notebook, Sophie. She's taking notes? I can hear you, said the shed. That's the point bug. The door opened. Maya came out. She was 9 now, and she'd gotten taller, and she still folded things wrong. She walked up to Sophia, and she looked at her the way she'd looked at her at a science fair 1.5 years ago, and she said, Are you going to live here? Adrian said, Maya? It's a reasonable question. It's an ambush. Yes, Sophia said. Both of them stopped. Maya turned to her father with an expression of enormous total 9-year-old vindication. See, she said, you just have to ask. They got married in the fall in the park on Day Boulevard at the seawall with about 30 people. Denise cried through all of it and denied it afterward. Priya Raman gave a toast that was 4 sentences long and ended with, She went dark for 3 hours on a Thursday, And I want you to know I thought she was in a ditch, and it turns out she was just finally somewhere. Gregory Halloran was not invited and did not come and sent a note, and Sophia read it once and put it in a drawer she did not brick up. Marcus Reyes came. He'd been out of work another 9 months, and then he'd testified voluntarily for 11 hours with a lawyer he paid for himself. And now he ran a claimant advocacy desk in Braintree that Whitmore Global funded and had no seat on, which had been Adrian's idea and which Sophia had approved in about 4 seconds. He stood in the back. He didn't say anything to anybody. Adrian found him afterward and put a hand on his shoulder and said, "You ate a cookie at my table." "I did. Come eat another one." Daniel Halloran did not come. He sent a card. It was 3 lines long. Adrian read it twice and put it in his coat pocket. His own coat. The old one returned at last. Cuff hand-sewn, and he kept it there next to a piece of paper folded 4 times wrong with one corner sticking out and a backwards A. And in a custodial account somewhere in Massachusetts, $410,000 went on quietly gaining 3% untouched, because it was never his, because it was hers, because it was what was left. Maya used it at 22. She used it to go to school for marine biology. And in her application essay, she wrote about a shark and a dolphin, and a notes column, and about a man who couldn't whisper, and about a woman who showed up to a science fair the same week she signed something in Switzerland. And she wrote in the last line that she had learned exactly one thing from both of them, which was this: anybody can send money. Only a person shows up. 2 strangers got stood up in the same restaurant on a Thursday night in February. And 97 minutes later, one of them knocked over a chair and walked 11 steps and said 11 words. And that was the moment 2 ruined lives stopped waiting to be chosen and chose each other instead. Nobody built that. They built it themselves.